Motion Eno.
Here.
Ashley Morrow.
Here.
Rebecca Hurt.
Here.
Alan Cohen.
Here.
Kathleen Shanahan.
Here.
Veronica Feldman.
Here.
Sue Carlton. Here. Allison Hewitt.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the prior meeting minutes from.
We do public comment. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Public comment. Anybody here for public comment? Yes.
Let's go first. Nope.
All right. Being nobody,
There.
without any objection, I would, if anybody objects, we would like to hear from Alvin Hewitt.
Hold on, we have to review approve prior meeting minutes.
Oh.
No,
Okay,
you went there, but you skipped over public comment. I want to make sure that we asked if anyone in this order. So we now here, now we can do the meeting minutes.
okay. Thank you. Anybody put it?
So.
It's been moved, it's seconded by Michelle and Greco. So motion carries. Now, without any objection,
So before we go to, are you referring to Allison's input from the last meeting? Yeah, right, we're gonna do that at the point in time we're talking about that section of the order.
okay,
Yeah, when we get there, we're gonna ask the group to hands be allowed for Allison as an alternate to speak on behalf of that item, because we have her look into it and we wanted to speak last time. So when we get to that point, we'll do it, so we're on track. We also have city council chair with us to react to two specific questions that I raised up, and we'll see those in the presentation. Sure, that's a tracking document. So that's where we're at. In terms of our objective for today. You know, hope springs eternal, but maybe complete our review, we'll see. We have a few lingering items within 6, 7, and Article 9, these three. Which we'll start with, and in 10 and 11, we stopped at 9 last time, those are fresh. So if we were to get through this. And I think we've got answers to all of them, and if you remember, granted, a lot of this came in the last couple of hours, so. I asked early, it just took a little while. Through memo or through our chair attending, and again, I'm invited for Allison to talk to, we hopefully get through those. We can get to 10 and 11, and of course, you guys last time had new business around. Things you wanted to still discuss and or talk about with respect to changes to the charter, so we'll see where we're at, but if we get through. These and that, we're getting close to maybe one more meeting after this, maybe two. It all depends on how we roll and how we go. So that's where we're at on that. I'm gonna move over to our tracking and jump right into this. Bear with me a second.
Madam Chair, we're fortunate that the chairman here with us today. One suggestion might be if there are specific items that the chair would like to speak to, and we had to speak with him. Out of respect for his time, maybe we could take those first out of order, so. The chair, I'm sure has other things to do, but
That's the plan.
yes,
That's the plan.
thank you.
Back to that. In the vote section. Okay. We had two topics. Last time, hopefully you can see this one, so we'll just, everyone, that's how we just at work it, so that's okay. We had two items, and those two items that were around questions that were asked by council. And I did receive from the city CFO from Dennis. Information related to the same, but I wanted both. Rebecca and I worked with both parties to kind of chime in on this so that you guys got a better understanding of where we were with the issue and what we might do. The first had to do with asking whether or not council should be required to have a separate standalone vote on the issuance of debt. And our request. I went through Sam initially, but good to have the chair here, was to ask more about why the question was asked and the problem it aims to fix. I'll hit the second one, then I'll have you come up. Again, Dennis sent an explanation for his side, but it was only about 2 hours ago. So we might have to look at that together. I acknowledge that. It came to the last minute. Similarly, we revisited the concept of the council's ability to engage in the budgeting process mid-year to allow for amendments to occur. Those questions are asked to both, and again, received something from Dennis, but we wanted specifically asked if the more about have these requests been rejected and a little bit more about the issues behind it. I think our city council chair talked about it generally, but we wanted to zero in. So without further ado, if I could invite you, I would do maybe start with the first item around more context for this particular question being asked and any kind of issues that come up that you were trying to get at. So focus on all of them. Which one was the first one? So the first one was the question, should council be required to have a standalone separate vote on debt issue?
Okay.
And we want to know a little bit more like what was the issue behind that? What was going on that it caused so much?
Okay, very good. I think part of the issue is that I don't know how much people have paid attention to council. But there has been a lot of dissent and disagreement between the council and the administration over some past projects, specifically Hannah is a good example of that, or even Barrows is a good example of that. So Hannah, and I wasn't here for the initial Hannah discussion, you know, all that was happening and went on break, sort of council. But what you heard, and you'll hear from other council persons is, you know, this balloon, this went up, this did this, this did that. And when you look back at what's happening, when I first came off, like first year and a half, I was confused, like what, who's telling the truth, who's not telling the truth, what's going on here, how did this get to, how did we get to where we are?
What's Hannah? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
the Hannah City Center, it's the new city offices up on Hannah, where the building we built. It started off as a smaller project and cost escalations, they got expensive, well. Subsequent to that, I've been involved in a couple of these things as well, where what happens is. And it's. How these projects come to fruition and get through the process is somewhat a little bit nuanced. But there's no real clear definitive vote. Let's say I want to build a building here from the city, or the city wants to build a building. There's no really clear cut decide a point of decision from council that yes, if you want to build that building is going to be, we're going to use debt to pay for that building. What happens is it in the documents? Yes. Is it just a line, like you go through, you know, multi-page document, you get down to one little line that says, you know, it'll be financed by debt, you know, that's it, of you know, multiple, you know, strong product. Or there's, once you approve a capital improvement project and it says it's a vision of debt, anyway, it's not a really clear thing. You're gonna pay, the intention is to, when you approve this project, you are also approving the fact that this is going to be financed, not as a pay-go project or not as, you know, something else. So I thought even for both fiscally transparent purposes and also through really kind of, while the staff and the administration is very clear on this, obviously the 7 members of council who, you know, we're dealing with a ton of things, sometimes this slips through, you don't see it. I thought it would be much clearer if we were presented a project and said, this is the project, this is how much it's gonna cost. And if you approve this project, you're going to approve the bonding for X number of dollars. So you know it's going to be a bonded project. They have to have a standalone separate vote approving that bonding of that project, as opposed to being enrolled into everything else that we're doing. Barrows, as actually a personal example for myself, obviously I like the concept of the park. I thought the park was a great concept, it was a great park, it was a great idea. I was concerned about its cost escalation, what that bond was going to look like. So I've said it from day one, from the very beginning, this is where I was not even very early on council, I did not know. And this is how I found this out, how this all happens. It's because I was very clear with the administration. I approved the park, I'm not sure, I don't necessarily approve the bonding this park, pretty clear, and for the winners. return of what I was doing. And they said, okay, we got you. And I said, okay, so be clear, I approved the park, but I don't approve bonding. Yeah. But I didn't realize that again, incorporated in these documents that we were approving all the way along the process. Was these lines that they simply said, hey, it's gotta be bonded. So nobody ever raised their hand and said, hey, dumbass. You put your road on proves the bonding already, so, which I really felt stupid about too, by the way, because here I am approving this project. And I'm telling them right up the front, had some problems or issues about this being a bonded project. And all along with all this entire process, they knew it was bonded, but they never said, hey, by the way, did you know that everything you're voting on is bonding this project? I think that pretty much beats that dead horse.
First of all, thank you so much for coming down again and to give your time to answer our questions. There are a long list of city council directives for things for us to look at, and me for one, I was a little unclear. It was kind of my assumption that you all had gotten together and had like, everybody had a long list and you were very deferential to each other and kind of created a long list because you wanted us to discuss as many things as you wanted us to discuss, rather than there being like necessarily 4 votes to approve any of the things that you asked us to look at. And that's been a little confusing for me, but.
Let me just say, it's pretty much kind of by consensus. So we actually met in this room and people pitched ideas and they compiled that list. Some things got rejected, but it wasn't really does anybody have a problem with us submitting that? It was that's the way it was. Does anybody have a problem with us submitting this? Does anybody have a problem with us? And if somebody had a problem with it, they spoke up and they said something. But it wasn't like 4-3, 5-2. It was a consensus kind of like workshop.
So mostly for purposes of discussion.
Yeah, because all we were doing was forwarding information for you guys to look deeper into some of the issues. Even though at the surface, we all, said that sounds good, but the devil's always in the details, right? So we recognize that.
So I appreciate that. So on this particular one, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Are you saying that in the documents that were put forward, I'm going to give you 2 scenarios. I think it's the easiest way for me to ask my question. Are you saying that in the documents that were submitted, you are approving the bonding without necessarily council being clear that they were approving the bonding? Or were you approving documents with the assumption that at the end of the day it would be bonded? And not understanding that the assumption that it would be bonded, or were the bonds actually approved
Well, the bonds,
without it being called out?
not the bond, but the fact that the intent of the administration to bond it. So the actual approval of the bonds does come later down in the process.
So it already.
And then what usually happens with those is because how that works, they roll all of these expenses in, well, they'll do some short-term bonds. Then they roll it all into longer term bonds and market that for the best rate and best, the best bid they can get. But it's the intent of how you plan to finance that project. So I come in, I'm the administration, I said, I want to build this $10 million building. And practically what happens is this document included in that multi-page document, it'll have a line in there that says, and it'll say debt. But it's literally debt. I mean, that's it, no further, or when the capital improvement projects, same kind of thing, it'll just be a tag along line, it's not really clearly spelled out. And for lack of a better word, I think the intent of this is to dummy proof these for future councils as well. So that there's never really another misunderstanding of what is the intent of paying for this project.
I have a follow-up question, then I'll be done. And my follow-up question is, over the years, I've seen city council, various inciting events that come from the administration, that city council felt things were not clear enough. And so asked the administration to put certain things in certain sections. And probably not to get the number right, but certain things over a certain amount had to be put in a certain section or voted on at a certain time or a certain way.
All the consent agenda.
Yeah, not really remember, thank you, that's probably what it was. Has city council attempted to ask the administration themselves, short of a charter change, to handle this directly? Just, in a civil manner, like ask the administration, will you send agenda items that require or an assumption of bonding? Will you put that on the front page of the agenda item? Have you tried to do it that way, short of us putting a charter vote out?
Well, and I think that is a possibility. This could be done by ordinance as well, but then again, ordinances. They can come and go and they can change. So I think this was, at least it was perceived as, that is important enough to. Treat it at a little bit higher level, especially when we start talking numbers we are. Again, just like all this other stuff, is identifying the problem, tossing it to you guys. To see if you feel like there's a solution within what, within the guidelines that you've been provided. And having you guys dig into it a little bit deeper. I mean, yes, the actuality, having it done through an ordinance. Handshakes, not so much. It just, when you're dealing with it, you have to have a clear understanding between two parties. In black and white, what the rules of the game are. Otherwise you get into OPW world. And what's all of a sudden what's good today might not be good 3 or 4 months from now. Well, you just did it then, but if it's not black and white. It doesn't matter. Everybody has to really have, things have to be spelled out. What the rules of the road are. What are the obligations? What are the responsibilities? Because there's 8 different personalities, 8 different people subject to the electoral process. Just because you have the 8 personalities you have today, doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna have the same 8 personalities next March, but the procedure should be the same. It shouldn't matter which butts are sitting in those seats, how we actually react and how we act within our governing body should be defined. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. So if I come up with a project and I remember the city council and it passes, is the assumption that you're gonna pay, I mean, how many of these projects that are significant over, say, 5 to 10 million get bonded versus paid as you go? Are most of the projects bonded?
Oh, yeah, all of them. Yeah, then we don't have, that's one big thing, everybody thinks it's a big pot of money sitting that the city's not spending, there's not a big pot of money, we do a lot of. Our basic expenses, are covered by the income. And then, any big project is gonna be bonded.
So is the point of this trying to control the administration or to educate the council that when they make these votes, that there's debt that you're adding to the balance sheet?
I think it's council. I think it's educating the council, know that when you vote on this project, you're also voting for debt. So that it's a clear public facing definitive vote that says, I understand that when I vote for this project, I'm also voting for debt.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming to it.
Absolutely. Steve.
So I just pulled an item from the 21st agenda that was $10 million. For payments for citywide water system maintenance and emergency repairs, just to see the language that you're talking about, and I just want to read one of the section of that agreement. It says this agreement provides $10 million each between RTD Construction Incorporated, Timmons Contracting Incorporated, and Dallas One Construction and Development for a cumulative amount of $30 million for the citywide water distribution system rehabilitation project for use by the water department within the water renewal and replacement fund and or water bond funds.
That's it.
The and or, I don't know, I mean, to me, that doesn't tell you, is it coming from one or the other or both? But it's approving either.
But it's debt.
No, it's a fund, it's debt and or an actual account that has money in it. It's and or. But it's in the resolution as.
It may not be clear, it's clearly through the utilization of debt. If it says and or, it's in this junk, you use either.
Correct. It's often either, it's not using debt either, it's either or.
But the option's there, you would approve the option, I agree that it's not clear, but it is.
But if you put that on every single financial resolution, then,
Suggest it's.
no, but I mean, I.
More clarity.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily make it any clearer if it's on every.
So what does it need to be in the constitution? I guess.
I think Ron.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You approved me to start with.
Sure, thank you for being here, the issue raised, real one. I was, in making a charter amendment, it locks things in a way that takes away flexibility. And I think my initial question was really, could it be done by ordinance? And that way the flexibility would be maintained without having to go back to the charter. Do you have thoughts on which way would be a preference for the council, or if you don't, that's okay.
I don't, other than the fact that, a charter of course is locked in stone, like I said, lack less flexibility and, not subject to being politicized, subsequent people being politicized, but it's in the charter. If it's an ordinance, it becomes political, so that's, I would be going to oppose it.
Thank you.
You said that you were getting ready to talk about some sort of a standalone vote on debt, you said that was later.
Well, because when we issue, actually the bond issuance, when they go to issue the bonds, we have to authorize the bond issuance. So that comes about, but we've already approved the spending based on debt. But the actual issuances of the bond come later, and generally they're rolled into multiple. We have short-term debt we've issued, and then they roll those short-term debt into longer-term debt, and you may have 10, 15 things that you roll into one big debt that they take to New York and they market it to the bond market.
But that debt bond package,
We don't know that.
you know, voted on.
Well, but then the consequences of that are, you don't vote on it, and you've already approved the debt, okay, what even. And that's what they'll say to you,
Is it,
you already approved the project, but you approved the debt, so yeah, I guess.
would do you typically have like a critical infrastructure project compiled with Hannah or something that's more?
I have to go back and look and see what they roll into it, it's always multiple items, it's never really one.
And has this council ever killed or voted no?
No, it's really honestly, I don't wanna say this, because I don't wanna imply that it's less consequential, but at that point, our hands are tied. Sure, we've already spent the money. The money's already spent, you're not gonna keep it in the short-term debt, you're gonna roll it into the longer-term debt. As it would be fiscally irresponsible not to approve it.
But to answer the question, so the answer is there's already a standalone vote on the issuance of debt. It's just that currently,
For the project, at the same time that you approve the project, I think it's the intent. In other words, like again, so if they come and they say, we wanna build this $10 million building. There really should be two votes, you want to approve the building and approve the debt to pay for the building. Yeah. So that that you're paying for it with debt.
Refresh my memory, is there already some threshold whereby a project is a certain dollar amount that it automatically gets pulled from consent and requires discussion?
5 million, I think, is what.
And is that for all projects in the city, or is it CRA and study?
I should be everything, I check with CRA, never the CRA chair, so I don't know, so usually it's 5, is that right? Sam, is that right? 5 million, pulled from consent, 3.
So you're looking.
Okay, because it wasn't over long, we had actually extended, it was less, Allison knows better than I do, sorry.
Give the answer. Great, okay.
Okay, 3, 5, that's just monopoly money.
As a follow-up, so in the example that Stephen read about the water project, there was already companies that were prepared to do service. So by the time that an item comes to you, such as the one that you read, are there already kind of contracts in place, negotiations have occurred, and they're just waiting for your stamp to say, yes, let's pull the trigger on the funding and do it, or where is the
I wish it was,
process when it comes to you?
I wish it was that easy. Generally, the point of no return is when they come with the final contract with the gross maximum price per project. That's the point of no return. But you have incremental approvals prior to that moment. But it's not until the contractor comes back to council with the gross maximum price that we can say up or down. Now, at that point, though, the problem is usually we've spent a lot of money to get to that point. So it's a harder vote to kill something to get to that point. A good example of that is the South House flood from talking about right now. We've done a lot of work behind the scenes. It's got approval, but they haven't given us the gross maximum price yet. So when we get it, when that gross maximum price comes out, see what it looks like. And it's real what's happening right now, as we're speaking.
I guess I'm still confused because what I heard you say is that over a certain amount, projects are just bonded, that's just the nature of the bonding. And
Generally,
then I heard Stephen read from it saying the agenda item says it's either paid for from the fund or it's bonded. I'm not seeing where a separate vote moves the needle if everyone knows it's going to be bonded or likely to be bonded?
I think that example that I was using about those, because as for myself, because this is when I was first time came into council and not as familiar with things. And, you know, they presented the project, and I said, yeah, sounds like a great idea, I mean, love the idea of having this park here, love the idea of all the amenities and all, but. Can we afford it? And I said, you know, if you broke it over multiple fiscal years, you know, as pay-go, could have. But I said, I'll support the project and I'll support the bonding. Well, again, this is shame on me, this is me being a dumb butt, look, that line was probably in that initial contract, not knowing it, or even though I was telling verbally, I support the project, but I don't support the bonding. But it was incorporated in that way, so in actuality, what I did by supporting the project from the beginning was support the bonding. Because it was never a clearly definitive moment in time that I said, yes, let's build Fair Oaks with the understanding that we're gonna spend X number of dollars to bond. And that was my personal experience. And what this does, this again, and some of that is when I first came on, so much grief about some of these projects and I kept hearing from certain council members that we never approved this, and I kept hearing from administration, yes, they did. You dig into it, you find out the administration is correct, yes, they did approve it, it was just buried like that. The council members literally just voted, they did not know they were supporting that project, where they were supporting it, because it wasn't clear.
So as a follow-up, using Stephen's example. Does council have the leverage of the leeway to say, you know, we've caught this and or stipulation that makes us a little nervous? We're going to reject this proposal until you come back to us with a definitive response of. Are you going to bond or not, or is that an administrative call that's out of the hands of council? Where's the back and forth in that particular?
I mean, I think that would be a legitimate discussion to have when the project is proposed. Do we have the authority to make that decision? No. If we ask the questions, yes. We don't have the authority to, that's outside of our sandbox of making that decision, that's an administrative function. We ask the questions, yeah, but we can't definitively say that, no.
So it's
Without an attorney here, it's only different level business.
I'm not sure I'm following that. I thought Bobby, what you were asking is, when you initially get that language, can you look at it and say it's too confusing to us and or? We're all simply voting no until you come back with a definitive answer. Can council do that?
Yes. Practically speaking, again, there's so many projects, so I mean, the city, this is not a small city anymore. I mean, there's just so many things happening and there's so many projects. I mean, look at our agenda, it's 120 items sometimes in one agenda. I mean, it's just very difficult. That's why, again, I think this idea is to dummy-proof it against these 120 item agendas, so that the really big consequential things jump out. You know, the things are gonna affect you, but they jump out very clearly.
Any other questions on this issue?
I also have one, I mean, I'm really trying to figure out, I'm following Rebecca's track, because I don't know. Like, if I had a project, I mean, how many of these projects come from city council versus the administration, yes?
All of them, we don't generate, it all comes from.
So the park was from,
All the administration, yeah, and council doesn't generate. It all flows from that really on still. Now, and I will say, I mean, I think in a lot of these, all these things that y'all are dealing with, this is Alan's opinion, not Chair's opinion. If you guys deal with these things, I think having other suggestions like you just talked about. Maybe it isn't best suited by an ordinance, maybe you could handle it, maybe it's a legitimate issue that has been raised. Maybe you can look at it and solve it in a different way, and I think if you wanted to look at it that way, I think it's a legitimate approach to take. But I think across many of these suggestions, I think that'd be something that I look at, if you reject it as not appropriate for a charter. But appropriate to be resolved through some other type of ordinances or something else, I think that'd be, I think it'd be well received by all the parties if you guys did something like that.
That's helpful, thanks.
Correct, yeah, thank you.
Any other questions on this item before we move to the next? Okay. This is a good one. When you were here last time, you spoke to the group about the concept of the council not having the authority to initiate the process by which mid-year budget amendments, were allowed for things that you thought were worthy. We asked that same question as the item above your bullet shows to Dennis around it to say.
I was like, phone tag with them, live yards, I wanted to say, I think,
But this for,
he literally called me while I was there. Sam, did you talk to him? Okay.
so he wrote something up and basically said that. That it's true, you can't make the administration initiate, but that they've never denied a request. And he said there were two for the prior fiscal year, I won't put words in his mouth, I'm just summarizing. As a point for you to launch into this again, because I think the group's just trying to understand. Where we need to land on this and the understanding of the issue, so.
So Dennis Romero is our budget chief financial officer, a really good guy. His answers were very wonky and not political. So the so one's a couple of things. One, there is no
I'm sorry. You can't argue for it up here.
Okay.
I just wanted to share a chance and.
Okay, I didn't know, like, we just sort of do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we shared my link to everyone as soon as I got home.
Okay, got
I reminded them.
Okay.
so. And if Dennis was here, I think we, and I would both agree, a couple of the way he answers things, he answers them as a political and not a politician. The one example was the administration never refusing a council initiative, well, because. And there's no such thing. By charter, council cannot initiate a mid-cycle budget amendment. We can't, period, like the end. That mechanism does not exist. So saying that the administration has never denied one is a factual statement, because we cannot initiate a mid-cycle budget amendment. So that just get that out of the way right away, and that's by charter, y'all can look it up yourself. The charter does not have the ability to do that. We have the budget one time and one time only by our own will, and that is the beginning of the fiscal year. We dispense of the budget, send it back approved or denied to the administration, and just deny, they send it back to us for approval. And we work it again until we get a meeting in the lines and it's voted on and approved by both. So that's that. There's no such thing as a mid-cycle council initiated budget. He showed two examples, and those are both in FY 26. Both of those examples were not council originated. What happens is at the end of fiscal year, they do all the budget and realize they have leftover funds, but they're unbudgeted funds. Well, the administration has to come to the council. We have these X number of dollars, you have to appropriate them. So what the administration did is they initiated those. Both of those items were not council initiated. They were administration initiated. Now they initiated and handed off, and now they became our issues because they gave them to us. And both of them were allocating unallocated funds from FY 25. So there was two items in the spring that were allocating unallocated funds. One of them was a social action fund, slush fund that we give charities. Should have used slush fund, that's what I think we use.
Right.
So rewind. There's funds that we give charities, and the other was excess funds in these other accounts that were not dispensed with it. So we were able to reallocate them to other priorities, and to the administration's credit, rather than what normally happens, like in a normal budget cycle, they will present a budget with their priorities handed to us, and we can grab what we see fit with. That particular time with these unallocated funds, they actually came to council and says, we have X number of dollars. What do you guys want to do with them? So they did not give us, and some of that was also politics, because some of it was very controversial, so lacking funds and who we're gonna cut and we're not gonna cut. And it's like everybody else, the musical chairs, nobody wants to be caught with cutting stuff. So, but they went to council and they asked us where we wanted to allocate funds, and so, but that was again all initiated by the administration. One cautionary tale I will say that if you choose to give council the authority to do mid-cycle budget amendments, I would probably restrict it quickly. I wouldn't do it because you wouldn't want to do it more than that because of create too much work, chaos. So but the quarterly budget reviews may be appropriate. But again, and that's just giving the mechanism to be able to do that, as opposed to because right now, 100% not disputed, love Dennis to death, he was answers were longish. There is no ability for this building to initiate mid-cycle budget amendments, period. It all has to come from that way, and that's by charter.
Just that the current process sometimes raise the pressures or the challenge the relationship between the council and the mayor.
Yes, but honestly, as much as is made of that. I think between two bodies of government, having natural tension is not a bad thing. For lack of a better word, it keeps everybody honest. You don't want, if everybody's okey dokey and everybody's saying do whatever you want, then you're all jumping off the cliff together. So having that type of natural tension between the administration and council is not a bad thing. I think, again, identifying things that we can create black and white, clear understanding so that it minimizes those the constitutional crisis environments that we spoke about before. As long as we can minimize those issues, as long as we have a process to resolve the conflict, I think we're fine. Having conflict is not bad. I mean, sometimes, and people politicize that too, all damn the mayor or damn the council, I hear it both, I'm firing back and forth, but there's some truth to some of it, some of it's just politics, just who we are in the political world.
Alan, whether it's you or Stephen, Rebecca, you assume that we all agree that we would want to support the concept of the city council having ability to initiate a budget amendment, whether we call it whatever it may be. Walk me through what happens next. Let's assume that happens. To initiate, then it goes to the administration. What is the process?
I think that's exactly what would happen, is that the council would have to make a proposal. Let's say there was something came out that became a much higher budget priority than maybe we had initially thought, natural disasters or something. And let's say council was in a position to see things differently, or than maybe the mayor had seen things based on certain elements. We would initiate that cycle, go to the mayor can accept or veto it, and then have to come back, same kind of process, just in reverse. I feel weird about it, so whatever call it,
No, you guys are just one at a time, so.
I don't wanna do this out of order, but I think I'm looking at something that has no title, but it was recently uploaded, so I'm assuming this is Dennis's
It's a Word document.
Word
It's
document.
linked off of here.
Yeah, and I don't wanna go, I haven't seen it either, but I'm reading it and I feel like words. Like we're doing words. He's saying something, you're saying something, and I think I understand what both you're saying. You're saying very clearly, and it is in the charter, and I think we've had this discussion. City council doesn't have the ability to initiate charter amendments. And if they did, what I just heard you say is then they'd go to the mayor and the mayor would
approve or deny.
approve or deny. And what I'm reading from Dennis is, although city council can and does request budget amendments at any time. During, it typically occurs,
So we don't have a mechanism to request, so that doesn't work.
The difference, I think, Rebecca, the difference is that if the city council just asks the administration.
I request.
If they have the authority to do it, they could override it through, they could override a veto.
Okay,
I mean, that would be.
is that
legal
the point?
Well, and also again, this is one of the things, and I stand with this, and I think the mayor agrees too, everybody should play there, she said it, I say it, we all need to stay in our sandboxes. So we have clearly definitive rules that we're supposed to abide by, right? By the charter, this is the way we're supposed to play this game of government. And where we always get in trouble is when one body tries to interfere or inject themselves into the other body's rules. Well, if I am trying to, right now, the way the rules are set, if I'm trying to inject myself into this budget process, I only get one bite of that apple, and that's the beginning of the fiscal year. After that, I don't have this is not my sandbox. So even if I try to inject myself in that, I would be guilty exactly what we get accused of stay out of my sandbox, this is my sandbox.
So what, if I'm understanding correctly, and I'd like to state this and not think to beat the dead horse, I'll do it quickly. City council can request a budget amendment, which is not the same as initiating it, because if they initiated it and the mayor rejects it, then it can override it. In which case, then the mayor is forced to find money which are not part of her priorities, whereas if you request it as, then she can reject it and not have to then diminish what her priority, her makes it personalized, they have for their priorities.
I think that's a fairly accurate assessment.
Okay, I'm trying to bottom
No,
line. because I'm hearing-
I think that's a fairly,
I don't want to smash, I'm trying to like really dial down.
but again, except the fact. We can't ask, there's no mechanism, again, we're not family. You know, we're not friends, we're not relative, we're working bodies of government. My rules state this is what my rules are. My rules are the city council gets a budget one time only. The administration has the rule of 300 and whatever days of the year after we approve that budget belongs to them. I mean, so it's there, so there is no rule, there's no mechanism to ask for a mid-cycle budget amendment.
So I'm not trying to be argumentative. Dennis is saying that city council can and does request budget amendments.
That's, I'd have to have them here, because I think they'll have to correct it.
And it typically occurs, I mean, he's got a time frame, and he's saying it happened.
Yeah, no, the two examples he used were actually administration initiated. Again, and to their credit, what they did is they initiated that. They said, council, we have these leftover funds. How would you like to spend it? But it came from the administration to council. And they didn't have to do that. What the administration could have done is says, we have these leftover funds, and they could have submitted a budget. For us to approve, just like every other, if you look at every single agenda. All of those budget, I mean, every agenda is filled with budget amendments. I mean, every single agenda is filled with budget.
Right.
They're all initiated by the administration.
I think both sides agree with that.
Yeah.
I think. Didn't, I feel like Dennis, we were talking about the last meeting where Dennis said that there was like a 180 or 200 something amendments that had been done. So those are normal?
That's normal.
That's normal.
That's the daily operate, that is just the operation of the city.
Right, but that's not us requesting, that's not you guys requesting, that's just moving things.
No, that's the administration, because they're the accountants, they got the dozens of people over there moving money. I mean, it's a $2 billion budget.
But y'all didn't initiate it.
No, not one item.
Or act.
Because, and if we did it, again, it would violate the current charter. We're not allowed to initiate budget amendments, period.
Okay.
What government entity does a rolling budget all year long? Every government I've ever worked with, states, counties. They pass a budget, there's a process, and the budget gets executed, and there might be some unallocated funds at the end of the cycle.
Right.
And you go back and either roll them over, but having 4 times a year where the budget can be adjusted, moderated, changed, seems to me abnormal to the construct of what an annual budget process is. I could be wrong.
Except that right now, 365 days a year, we have the ability to adjust the budget. It just originates in one building and not the other.
Well, you pass a budget that gets out, the funds get allocated by department, by project, by issue, so. What flexibility do they have if all the money's already allocated to then make, I mean, they're executing against the budget, right?
Correct, but again, their budgets can be changed all year long, just not by us.
No, but their budget is the budget that you approved, I mean.
Okay, but so let's say I manufacture, or I'm in a widget company or widget department for the city. And I'm given $100 for my annual budget. The city council can't touch that, but if the mayor decides to initiate a budget amendment for that department, she can. So it's subject to changes, the budget should be changed, and as we said, on every freaking agenda we get, we have budget amendments.
But then you can comment on those, right? I mean, you can, so the widget guy comes back using your example, and says. I need 120, I only spent 80.
Right.
That comes back to you.
At the end of the year. Only at the end of the year.
I know, but I just don't know, I'm sitting here as somebody who
Well, it
was at the state and we had 18 departments and they had a budget that the legislature approved. government line items, and then that they run their agencies or their departments, so having people come in and go this way all year long would be, I think, very unconstructive to productive government getting projects done.
I don't disagree with you on points, I'm just highlighting what the issues are. I don't disagree with that, that's why I said I wouldn't do it more than 4 times a year, I wouldn't have unlimited concept, I could just see a council weaponizing it, having budget amendments every week.
But so the council, let me ask one other question, I'm sorry. So council, every year, the budget process happens and there's no input from the council, any member, to what's in the budget. That's a question, not a statement. How, if you're the council elected for a region within Tampa, and you have priorities that you want to see done in your region, how do you get that into the budget?
There's 2 opportunities, one prior to the administration, like right now, we're starting our budget season for FY 27. It's starting right now. So council has the ability to speak with department heads to talk about their priorities and verbally communicate what their priorities are. They can accept or reject those. If they're accepted, obviously it rolls into the budget. And then how well you're liked by the administration, what makes it into, typical politics, what makes it in, what doesn't. If it doesn't make it in, you also have the ability, because again, once the mayor presents a budget to council, the mayor no longer has that budget. Council owns that budget. Council can shred it, write their own budget, they can put things in it. And again, that's one bite of the apple every fiscal year. And it's a powerful tool, or it can be a powerful weapon, depending on how somebody approaches it. I think generally for the city of Tampa, it's been a tool. Nobody really has truly in the past that I know of has weaponized it, but it has the potential, we have the potential to have it, like we see in Washington, government shutdowns, I mean, it could happen. But yeah, once the mayor goes before council that morning, hands us those 2 binders like that, a budget, hands it on our desk, they no longer have control over it until we pass it. And then she can either veto it or accept. If she vetoes, it comes back to us.
And at that point that it's on your desk, can you guys add projects to it?
We can shred it, we can add it, we can subtract it, we can do all.
And so then, my very last comment is, I think you should be very careful about advocating for 4 times a year that you make changes to budgets, because I think that would affect your bonding rating. I'm telling you, this is not another government agency that I know that allows that sort of change and that dynamic of an approved budget process that's pretty validated, verified, and executed.
Yeah, you were speaking well about my favorite. That's why we have to defer to Dennis and our experts to do the bonding, so I don't work back into it.
Jared. So currently, at most or all council meetings, there's 5, 8, 10 different budget amendments that council votes on, correct? And what you're suggesting is 5 or 8 of them come from the administration, and 1 or 2 once a quarter, or none would come from council, right? So practically, like process wise, that's the change you're advocating for.
Well, I wanna make sure, I think I said this last time I was here. I wanna make sure when I'm here, we're not advocating, I'm not, as Alan Clinton, I'm not advocating for anything. These are all things that we've observed as a council, and that we're bringing forth you guys to dig into and have that in-depth discussion. In a way that we can't really do that in council amongst ourselves, 7 people, we can't do what you're able to do with it. So we've identified issues for you guys to look into, look at the issues, dig into them, accept them, reject them, modify them, incorporate them, make other suggestions. I think that's totally within y'all's ability to do. I mean, and as Kathleen, I think that's a good question to ask. Hey, if the council had the same ability for mid-year budget cycles that the administration has, because they have unlimited. If the council had, would that affect our bond rate? I don't know. I think that's a good question for you guys to ask, because I don't know.
We've had a lot of discussions here about if there was some kind of an unanticipated crisis that needed to be investigated. The council has authority and procedures to be able to investigate, but not
Not the money to do it.
And does this get
Yes.
that?
Yes. So this would be a way for us to, and I think there is responsibility, the council has to find where the money's coming from. They just can't willy-nilly be able to, but yeah, for that is a good example of an issue that would not be foreseen in October when we pass the budget. That would arise that we have to have the ability to allocate money for. Or let's, here's another one that I'm sorry, this is a real time thing this one. When we have somebody's out on FMLA or something, we have to hire temporary help. We don't necessarily budget for that, because it's only seven, and we don't have a huge department that we can amortize and anticipate those things, it's so few people. And all of a sudden, I'm hiring temporary help and basically doubling the salary, we're having to take it out of our hide of hiring temporary help. So that's another thing, we don't budget to backfill somebody every single budget cycle, because it just doesn't happen, because it don't happen ever infrequently, but we do have those needs. I will say that being said, this is not about identifying the problem we've had with this administration, because I've worked very closely with the administration, they've been very good about that. But if they didn't, they'll say we had an adversarial person who wasn't working well. It could be, but so because again, it goes back to the black and white. But I mean, in my term as city council chair, I've had a decent relationship with the mayor. We've been able to win Dennis and John Bennett and all those people I work really well with. I've been able to pick up the phone and say, I got this problem, and they work with me, they get it done. But if they didn't have to, I think that's the key, they didn't have to. Anything else? You have any other outstanding questions? You have a question?
Yeah, I'm on a different track, it's okay, to switch gears a little bit, we've exhausted that other topic.
Beat that dead horse.
So we're gonna be discussing voting election procedures today. I was doing some research and went back and watched a discussion from 23 and 24, 2023 and 2024. About the dates of when elections occur on your cycles with state and national elections. And since you're here, and you have such a strong opinion, and we're gonna discuss it today. I personally think I have a different opinion than you here, so I wanna hear your comment.
Yes, well. Again, not as my position on council, but as my position in politics, I mean, I reckon that the party. And political party and also being involved electoral politics my entire life, I will tell you that. There is lots of advantages of being standalone. One, for your candidates and how you recruit people. For anybody that is ever considering running for office for the city of Tampa. When you're at a spring cycle, well, the weather's much better, we're knocking doors, but that's supposed to the fall election. But the problem is you're competing with everybody else. So let's say you're running for mayor. Competing for airtime, especially in a presidential election or even a gubernatorial time. You're paying premium rates because they're gobbling up all the airtime. You're not gonna get TV commercials, you're gonna pay a lot more for TV commercials. Your mail houses, you're not gonna get discounts, you're gonna pay a lot more for your mail, you're gonna pay, and trying to recruit volunteers. Nobody's working for your campaign because they're all attracted by the sexy, the governor's race, the presidential race, so you're not gonna get your volunteers. The nice thing about being in the spring is you're standing alone. And you're really focused on city issues, because what will happen is you will become statewide and nationalized in your city elections. I mean, the last thing you want is when you're running for council or mayor, you ask about abortion. Or ask about, right to carry, or all these things are outside of the purview of the city business. When we stand alone, we're just talking about the city of Tampa. And I know people talk about the vote, well, we don't restrict people from going to the voting booth, right? People and there's good and bad. I'll tell you what, voters that show up for city elections, they are well-informed voters. They know what they decide they're gonna go, they are well-informed voters. When you go, if you're on a gubernatorial or presidential, you know what's gonna happen? They'll drop, they won't vote, or it'll be eeny, meeny, miny, moe. They won't have any idea who they're voting for the city. That's my 2-second take. Yeah.
Well stated.
Yeah. Anything else? And by the way, nobody has to apologize. I mean, this is, as I call my friends and say, blank my life after a city council meeting, and they go, hey, you asked for it. And that's true. I mean, I asked for it. So I'm here. I asked for it. So it's, you don't have to apologize for asking questions. Don't apologize for me being here. I don't mind it at all. I appreciate the opportunity to at least speak and yeah.
Very helpful.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you. Thank you, there's maybe a channel 10 for everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Sorry. Right there.
Right, Rob, we got 2 hours for the sounds.
Go, man, go.
My gosh. The over under, I remember finishing is all over the place. I'm gonna go to the first item chronologically, I think. I can. And then we're gonna get back to where we were, this is what we just heard. Compare that to what our thoughts on what Dennis provided, and decide as a group whether we want to go with that. Plus some other issues, and eventually we'll get everyone's consent, that Allison's input. She just sent it out, a lot of that was last minute, so we can look at together. So, together, I think this is the first. Hold on, I'm gonna lie, it's not the first, hold on. So. When we discussed 6.03. You remember. We pointed out that there had been a memorandum. In response to a council motion around the last charter changing the process by which. I think its department heads were brought into the office, so it used to be. I hope I get this right, the mayor appointed, the council confirmed, so the mayor, the council confirmed. And then in the last charter, it was a change. By which the mayor nominates and the council approves or rejects. And then if you remember, and I'm gonna click on this in a minute, but thank you for passing this up. We asked for more information about the practical implications of the last charter change. Because I believe the mayor position wanted to go back to the prior. So everyone's looking at that now, am I correct? Thank you for passing that out. Take a minute and look over and I can also click on it and bring it up here.
We're talking about 6.03.
Correct.
Yeah.
And still reading Anyone need a few more seconds?
Seconds, switching.
Rich? Almost done, Bryce. Okay. So it used to be, as I understood it, the mayor would appoint or sort of hire and the council confirmed, and now it's more. It says I want to nominate a person and the council can up or down vote it. Which means that until they get from council, they don't really know if the job is, as I understand it. The reversion back to the original charter, the point was, what are the practical implications of that change? Why does mayor side want to go back to where it was? And that's what you guys just read. It's off here. It has to do with interpretation of Mr. Head. It has to do with the ability to recruit highly qualified people and the premise that this process makes it difficult for candidates to disclose their interest and wait for that eventual vote as opposed to the more or less certainty, assuming most are confirmed under the prior approach. Relocation comes into play, right? So there's the notion of having a lack of certainty until then. Not just in general, not allowing the legislative process to dictate executive hiring. I think that summarizes it for the most part. I think you guys get this is going, okay,
So when I saw the memo earlier today, I did have a chance to look at it a little bit, and I was thinking back to this issue, so. 8 years ago, we did the charter review commissions, and 4 of my fellow commissioners at the time ended up becoming council members, so one raising us with this presence here tonight. We discussed and rejected this for some of these reasons. And then when I was trying to go back and read the history a little bit, it looked to me like Councilman Hughes at the time in 2022, so that was not on the ballot 2018 when the last charter. We made some amendments to it, which are reflected in the charter today, with the timing and stuff, but not this particular nomination appointment change. And then it looked to me like Councilman Hughes at the time, council had considered this and voted it down. And then a couple of days later, Councilman Goods asked for reconsideration of it. And if I understood the record correctly, it passed on a 4-3 vote. And it was right around the time that the then chief of police had some public incident where she was on a golf cart and said some things were inappropriate. And you know, it seemed to me that emotions were high on that issue at the time that happened. And so it seems to me that it was passed at the time without a lot of discussion and is worthy of revisiting. And the benchmark we've been holding for ourselves is why make the change, right? And the mayor's articulated a couple of reasons why make the change. So I think it's worthy of us discussing and considering reverting back to the 2018 version of it.
Further comments, Bobby?
So what it gets down to, for me, and I want to hear everybody's opinion, is it doesn't seem to make sense to appoint someone, they start a job, but there's still a legislative process because they then have to be voted in, however, whatever word you want to use to, semantically capture that. There's still a vote that has to take place to allow that person to officially start their job. And that vote could technically go either way. Like this person could move to Tampa, be appointed, start their role, get to meet their staff, and then, whatever that timeline is, weeks later, the council could still just say, we don't agree with this appointment, and then it's, there's still that catch to me. So I think for me, that's the fundamental issue. I think part of it is a little bit semantics, but when we get down to the logic of how this kind of flows through the process, that's my bedrock for what I think about with this.
Reaction, Steve, do you want to say something?
Well, I don't accept any of the points in the mayor's letter with all due respect. To me, it boils down to whether or not the person can start serving in the role before council votes. And if they can start serving in the role, it means they have to make the decision about resigning from their current job, moving, investing, and in potentially uprooting their family, switching schools before council's vote. And I think it's disingenuous to even expect council to consider saying no when somebody's made all those decisions. I think they should be allowed to weigh in before those decisions are made, and I can't imagine somebody making those choices if they're waiting on an appointment vote by council.
So can I ask a question? If you don't know the answer to this, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but obviously there's something was the change in 2023 to take what the mayor did and shift it from and change what the city council did and change it from confirming to appointing. Do you know, is there a legal consequence to those words? Does it change in a legal way what the roles are?
It does, it really comes down to who is the appointing voter. This was a shift from the mayor to council as far as having that word, that ability to say, yes, we're in the role. The way it was before, the mayor would make an appointment and in essence, the council had a veto. Where the confirmation process could operate in that manner. The timing of which was subject to scheduling, you know. So I think that's the difference here from a legal standpoint as to who has the appointment power.
Yeah, it's very helpful, and it just seems to me that, you know, in a CEO board kind of analogous context. Or, you know, Senate presidential context, it's really the purview of the chief executive to appoint the staff below them. What's the confirmation process for those people who are at, you know, a critical level.
Before you go, Bill, you want to say something?
I'd rather hear his question.
Okay.
So it's kind of a question. Comment. As I understand it, under the present scenario, you got, you know, mayor nominates, and then by a 4-7 vote, the council could disapprove the recommendation. Right? 4-7. Could disapprove.
They could,
Reject it.
by 4 votes, they could choose not to.
There's a number of other areas here where it takes a super majority to sort of things, right? 5 or 7. You know, Ron, I was just, you know, thinking if there's not a complete change to this as you're walking through it, maybe you heighten the rejection number at 5 or 7, because I do understand as the chief executive, you're nominating people you vetted out, I assume believe to be good people. I'm not so caught up in the semantics. I think I hear what Stephen and Bobby, what you both say. In both scenarios, who would make the move, you know, quit your job until you move to the city council that said, I would. I agree, but maybe that standards 5-7, I'm just throwing that out there. I don't feel strong about that, I think the law is.
If anyone else has something, I have a couple comments, so I can leave if anyone has questions that may change my comments.
I just had a quick question. So these changes were made at the last charter review, right? And they were approved by the voters? Is that what?
That's a charter review, no.
To be clear, there was a series of changes made in 2018, not the appointment nomination change. That was discussed and not made. And then in 2023, there was no charter review commission that year. Actually, it went on the ballot in 23, but it was passed in 22 by the city council. City council by a vote of 4-3 agreed to put this on the ballot, if I understood correctly.
Okay.
And I have I don't know if we have, but I have the exact changes that were made. Does everybody have a copy of that? Like the 2023, what went on the ballot?
Should we have that? If you go to muni code, do the strikeout language.
Yeah, the substance of it, I don't know. if we-
Robert, sorry for interrupting, that's in the memo that I've sent you.
It's attached with it, right?
Yeah, it should be
Right.
in your spreadsheet.
We had that prior and sent it again,
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
so we do.
I'm logged out,
Okay, do we want me to display that?
I think it would be helpful. Just-
Bear with me, I can display that.
It's really the only change that's made, it deals with that issue.
I also have a paper copy, just one though, if anyone needs that.
Because the main difference was the word nominate, right? Before.
That was the principal mistake.
Yeah, it used to be the point firm, and then it was changed to essentially to nominate and appoint.
Got it.
And I'll happy to share with you guys.
Oh,
Is it, I know what what their logic for changing it to that one?
Surmising, but I think it was.
I believe it's this one, correct? There,
Officer,
The chief of police in this incident.
and they want to go look at their paperwork or something before they appoint, approve them, or like, what's their thing, they want to do a little bit more looking into their lives before they vote on this person?
I think it was, yeah. I don't wanna put any words in anybody's mouth who was councilman at that time, but. One argument would be that, the chief police decided to make the city look bad, and there was a vote to remove the ability of the mayor to be the one who. Should just council.
Under both scenarios, they only have 15 days, right? The 218 are now, the city council gets into the appointment and nomination, it has 15 days to act. So it's a fairly short fuse.
2 weeks.
Kathleen, you want to say something earlier?
Well, I was gonna ask that question. I didn't know if it was 15, if there was a time limit on
I read
it.
15
Yeah.
days, and someone tell me if I'm wrong, Ken, is that right? Stephen? 15.
Including weekends?
And I don't know how many of you around the table have tried to recruit people to take jobs. It's very difficult. And I think this is a very dynamic city. If you want to be a city that's seeking talent, not creating barriers. So, you know, if I'm coming to the city to work for the mayor and get a budget that the city council has approved, that I have to execute against and be measured against. The clearer those lines of authority, responsibility that can be outlined, the better talent you're gonna attract, and that's just the reality. So,
It's been 2 years, has there, I mean, there's concerns in this memo. But has there been any concrete examples?
I was gonna ask that if the room thing was new. Where that manifested itself in losing talent or,
That we would know.
I don't know, but I asking, probably not, okay.
and the only other thing I would suggest is that it only apply to the departments that are listed in the charter. For all departments, because then you're really turning it into a co-executed, co-administrative leadership team, and. I mean, I'm telling you, between the budget passed from the council and this, it's a dilutive authority responsibility.
Well, not to digress, but the specific positions are not listed in the charter.
There are departments in the charter.
The specific positions that are confirmed are not listed in the charter.
That's part of this process, you mean?
And just the ones that require the appointment, not listed. Just as there's an interpretation required to determine which of those, which positions fall under what is stated in the
That's
charter.
what you think, Bobby, good.
So that little period is for them to check out this person to make sure that they're good and they agree with that person being in that position. Just a quick little question, business days or weekends included, 15 days period, because 15 days is a 3 weeks, if it's just business days, that's 5 days per week.
If there's a definition of time.
Well, let's look at that.
But it's nothing for someone.
Calendar days at the moment, it's 15.
If it doesn't specify.
So it would have weekends.
Okay, so it's about 2 weeks. And I had another question, but it has left my brain, I gotta come back to you, that was the next question, I'm back, go ahead.
I've got a few things to say, and I'd rather hear what everyone wants to say.
I guess this is more so an observation, because I believe unless somebody corrects me. That in the state of Florida, the governor can appoint and the legislature has to confirm that as appointment. Sometimes that leads to a bad result. In terms of who is in important positions in Tallahassee. On the other hand, in the federal system, president nominates and the Senate has to confirm. And I would think that if in the process of the nomination, it was revealed that whether by policy or personal issue that the nominee was problematic, they would not be confirmed to their position. But if we go back to this method, it is much more difficult to rescind an appointment after the fact than if we nominated and had the legislative body confirm that position.
Why is it
Why would it be more difficult? Because as I say, you vote 15 days later.
Right, but the person is in office, they have moved their family, made these life decisions, and it is absolutely just, normal that would be more difficult for a body to then take back the
appointment.
With due respect, though, I think.
Then it becomes personal, you're saying that then there's an emotional tie to this nominee, they're here, and no one's gonna take away the job.
I think you're assuming some facts that aren't, like, I think you're assuming that because the mayor says I appoint somebody, that they've relocated their family and stuff like that, I think. Because me at least, I'm not moving until the 15-day period passes. I mean, the mayor does have the ability, and I don't think ends with anything was asked or advised us to make it a good appointment for next days, which I'm presuming that person could be. I just feel like there's an inherent difference between a confirming process. And it seems to me that the legislative body is more appropriately in a confirmation mode than an appointing mode. They don't have, an appointment to me implies that you're doing the search and you're conducting all the diligence and not reviewing what's provided to you, confirmation proceeding. I mean, in the Senate context, Senate has the ability, I guess, to do some, the consent due diligence, typically you're asked to provide information. And they repeat the information that's provided and they make a confirmation.
Ashley, and then I do want Rebecca to go. But I think that's going to hear from what she's thinking is something.
My next thing I was gonna say, but I kind of take that back, what I was gonna say was maybe at the next. City council, they would just make a vote at the next upcoming city council, that be the date change instead of 15 days, but then because I don't have any problems with Mayor Castor, but like I say, I just, let's say we get a rogue mayor. Further on down the line and they appoint somebody that is problematic. And like you were saying, he needs to be removed. I'm just saying, people start digging into their lives, or somebody decides to expose them or whatever, and they start sharing text messages, sharing pictures or whatever. But this person is now the department head of our, energy for the police station, like, I don't know, I kind of understand what you're saying now. This person's in that space now. And they were appointed by somebody that is problematic. But I know some people say, well, they wouldn't be voting in that position. Y'all,
They're not in that position until they're. You're not in the position until the city council takes out.
right, so they can deny.
Right, yes.
Just say so both sides. Denied the.
Right, I understand that.
So,
But in that interim, in that period in between, if something comes out that. Hey, this is probably not the best guy, and that's only comes out because people find out this person has been appointed. That period of time, I think, is necessary.
No one suggested the change.
Oh, okay.
It's their area.
The only question is, I think, the only question, and I mean, there's a lot of questions people can raise, so I'm not. Big question that I've raised is, whether the mayor nominates or appoints and whether the city council appoints or confirms. My suggestion was that we go back to the mayor appoints the person and the city council confirms them. And it would still give the city council absolute authority to confirm or deny the individual, in which case they would not take their position.
Right, so I just wanted to.
can we just set Rebecca off? I think Rebecca.
So I've got a few points, so I'll go through them quickly. First of all, Bobby, what you said, like. Is so basic and makes so much sense, like. This, is it semantics, are we gonna make a charter amendment that totally changes something based upon. Who appoints and who confirms, et cetera, it's gotta be important, right, to make that change. Garrett, what you said, like. I don't know how many times I said it, maybe none at all, But it's super important to me that the people have spoken, and how disrespectful to be like, hey, you spoke, we think you're wrong, we're gonna go back, that really troubles me. So again, I think it has to be really important. Ron provided some really important background. That I wasn't aware of all the details. One was, this was discussed during the last charter review, and the charter review rejected it. It went to, you told me it went to, you said it went to city council, and city council rejected it. There was a motion to reconsider by one of the members based upon one particular incident that wasn't a small one, but the person had been appointed and I think confirmed at that point by the time that some of the things appeared in the paper and people were like, maybe this wasn't the best choice. And that led to a motion by city council, and then it being put to the people, which I believe approved. I believe that the people have approved every charter amendment except for the ones back quite a while ago when they were trying to allow mayors to, it had to do with how long you can be in office. I think they've approved everything else. I could be wrong. Someone tell me. I'm not trying to provide misinformation. That's my memory. That being said, when you're trying to get people to be in local government, it is a big deal to take a different position. You have to tell your local government, sometimes you have to tell them when you're applying, but sometimes you don't, but you have a job. You have a job and you're there, you're in your community, and and then once it comes out that you have taken a different position, you no longer are necessarily in good stead with your government. If city council gets here and says, I'm not going to appoint you, you don't necessarily have that job anymore. It's a huge deal to jump government jobs. If you look at each communities where they are typically run by 5 people to 7 people, depending upon the size of each communities, and each community sticking my mind to Pinellas County, and there's a ton of them, and so they provide a wealth of examples, and it is extremely difficult for them to get quality attorneys and extremely difficult for them to get city managers. They don't have a lot of other people in those governments, but it's super tough, and it's because as soon as they put their thing in there, they are put through multiple meetings and 5 people, and they're not getting the best people. Not all of them, some of them are wonderful, but the people that we get in the city of Tampa are people that could go into private practice and be at the top of their field, and we're so lucky to have them. And I honestly believe that there is a difference between being appointed and then confirmed versus I am throwing your name out there and you have 7 people who may or may not, you have no idea what those people think. You now have to announce to everyone, and you're right, they can still vote them down. I don't have a specific example of when they have, but I certainly know people who have had, confirmations that are long and people delve in and bring up issues. But to continue to recruit the city of Tampa for the people that we have at the level, the people that come to speak to us, that we're like, wow, like that's impressive. Those people could be in private practice, and I think a lot of government people could be in private practice and they choose not to, but not everyone believes that. I think everyone can tell that the people that have come spoken to us are, those are the people that we have here, and I think it makes a huge difference. And I would support, as much as I'm somewhat torn because this was recently voted on, based upon the history that Ron has told me, based upon what I know about how hard it is to put yourself out to be considered for a different position in a local government without some weight that you're likely to get it unless there's a problem versus your name's put out there and there's no weight behind it. I think it actually matters and I would support if someone were to make a motion to put this on the agenda.
So in summary, the process by which the mayor appoints and the council confirms. This might not be used correctly legally, but more binding in a sense. Than the alternative, which is more open-ended. That's like
Which is
where the
nominating.
mandate.
Which is, I'm nominating, you have no idea what the seven people are gonna say, and you still don't, and I get that, but there's a weight between.
Yeah.
Appointment versus I'm just throwing your name out there and. Good luck keeping your job once you put it out there. That's important, it's important for us to have people in. Respectfully, my experience in local government and seeing other local governments, because I'm a nerd and I sit there and I watch the beach communities and I watch their meetings. As painful as they can be, I'm torn on this one, because the people have voted, but I honestly think this is important enough that I would, vote to propose this to city council. I am not sure city council will agree and move it, but I think it's important.
Just for a second. I'm just gonna base my comment on what you said, Garrett. You're mentioning the city attracts great people, this has been around for a couple of years. Do you want more information? I mean, we have. The memo goes through positions on things. But do we know if it's actually manifested itself in what maybe what's seen a great candidate, political hit job, they don't get.
I think it's golden. I think if, I mean, imagine if we all had the advantage of sending policies up to council. Having people vote on them and then looking 2 years in the future. We can kind of have that. This was adopted in 2023. It's 2026.
How's it been going?
How's it been going? You know,
That's why I'm asking if you would like me to get more specific feedback, or if we want to just. Express our views on this.
Well, I think the mayor's letter provides that feedback. Yeah.
Presumably there are reasons behind it, but I'm just asking. Yeah, that question. Okay, I can. See the grad, no, around it.
So it's still not. I think everyone has expressed different opinions and some of them rely on. Just the feeling of the words that are used and then other opinions seem to assume that there is a tangible. Or a substantive difference between the confirmation process versus the appointment process. So I guess I would like to know, is there an actual difference or is it simply like?
Council just gave us an opinion, there's some,
But
I have a question, that's the advice I'll give.
okay,
yeah, that's
So here, just sort of across there.
Could you just state that again? I don't might add that, I don't know. Could you just state that one more time?
But
Then I got a couple more things.
it's the question related to, legal effect to the difference, and then there is, it's who has the appointment power. The practical process is probably less of a difference, but the political side of it as to who exercises the appointment power and what the other part of government do. Just different scenarios here, and that's why there is an effect, and I think why you're seeing an objection from the mayor, because the opposition to change.
So then, to Ron's point, I agree with you, I think the mayor should be the one driving the ship. Doing the talent search, the administration should be doing the interviews, getting the contract ready, and in that sense, if we wanna use. This, I don't wanna say this word appoint, but if that is their role. I don't think anybody disagrees that the administration should be in that role, am I wrong about that? I think we all agree that like, so when it says the city council will appoint, I don't think any of us assume that. City council is doing that, finding candidates, interviewing them. Is that an assumption that identify that we all agree?
They confirm.
Because I don't think the city council should be doing that, I think it should be the administration saying, all right, here's our candidate. This is who we like, this is who we've decided to take out of all the people we've looked at. And the administration should then offer that person to the council to approve or not, and I think that was your point, and maybe what Ken said. We don't always use the word appoint.
Can I look at different definitions?
I still don't find I'm sorry, I still don't find your explanation to be specific.
Help me help you.
I mean, it's mainly because you use the word in appointment, you use the word appointment power to explain the definition of appointment, so like. Can we start paying this? And getting, can they be on the higher, can they be on the payroll?
If someone is appointed to the position, under the old language, they will be given the position.
Currently, can they be on the payroll for council?
No.
So there is a specific tangible difference, I'm looking for details like that, I don't feel like you're talking about. All of those different things, I'm not saying I disagree yet, I just simply would have it all on the table.
Well, hold on, get Garrett, and go ahead, Rob.
Just super quick though, I remember on a previous section, the word appointment did describe some sort of employment with the city, to your point, Stephen. In the charter, it does say something about. I know if you're an appointee, you're on payroll, so.
So Stephen's saying, what's the material difference? The material difference is in the former scenario. You have the job, and now you need to take it away.
Yeah.
In this scenario, you don't have the job until it gets to council. Okay,
I'm
Bill.
gonna blend Stephen, your issue, like I said, and that is, I just was flipping through the dictionary, looking at the two different definitions of the words. Appoint is much stronger. It really is, it's, that's suggesting for a job versus that's your job. It can be taken away by a 4-7 vote. If I was looking, and I get it, I agree with you, but if I'm not gonna put my job, boy, I have a lot more comfort level knowing that Bill Shafino was appointed to a position. I'm at that point willing to start making some movement towards taking that job versus I'm nominated, okay, I'm gonna wait for a little while and see how that plays out. So I'm torn, Rebecca, I thought, said it very well about talking about the issue of talent retention, so.
I'm gonna go wrong, what I said, Alan, and then I'm gonna do a quick poll just to see where we are.
I was gonna make
We're gonna
a
go.
motion and see if we get a second, then we can discuss the motion, that way at least we have a framing of what will be on the table. I'd like to make a motion that we replace the word nominate in all instances and all derivatives of nominate, nomination, nominate. With appoint and derivatives thereof, and we replace the existing word appoint or derivatives of it with the word confirm, so appointment, confirmation, so on and so forth, so every instance that is nominate will be changed to appoint, every instance that will be changed to confirm in section 6.03.
So you made a motion, I think someone needs to second that, correct?
I did have a question before we get to that point.
Go ahead,
There'll be discussion,
I'll sign it.
get a second.
Okay,
let's do this and I'll make sure you have a minute to respond. So. You have to do all those in favor now.
No, you don't go.
Okay, we just gonna show of hands, saying once Robert's first.
He's supposed to be discussing anything unless we get a motion a second, that way we can review, but we're on it too. So now you.
y'all confused me, because y'all ready to move, or we moving or we
The
facilitating?
question now is to discuss the motion, right?
Okay,
And then when we're ready, you call us to a vote.
okay,
So I want to be clear about this, that whatever individual is appointed does not start their position at work or get paid until confirmed.
That's a real question.
I guess, question.
As per the motion on the floor, they would begin the job.
When?
It'd be upon point.
oh. And then
You have to add a
Or
different
nominate.
language to affect what you just asked.
But by ordinance, city council could change that, right? They could say that nobody is appointed shall, so start a one
Major
confirmation or something.
Right, I should say nominated.
The city council can't take away a power from the charter that they would be able to speak over the word appoint. But as commonly used, an appointment is used. So you could add language that, I'm just saying, based on the motion that's on the floor, it would not do what you're asking.
So right now, currently, they can be nominated, and then they would start working this job.
No, they're not, they can't start working until the council approves the nomination.
Council appoints.
Appoints, that's the word.
It's sort of, you don't get the job in the current scenario until the council blesses the nomination. In the old scenario, you got the job, and then they can only take it away from you by virtue of the confirmation vote.
Within 15 days,
With
15 days. But, okay, so what were you asking about, they start working, but they don't get paid, what is that?
Oh, my point was that by nominating somebody and just, you know, there's nothing that prevents the mayor from requesting 4 meetings with council members before she nominates somebody. That can always happen. So like the 15-day and the public that's kind of why I reject the argument in the letter, is because I think in both situations, the mayor probably is gonna have that person meet with council before she nominates or before she appoints, and they should. The difference is, does the person start working in the job before council votes?
Okay.
Because that sets an expectation, there's pressure that goes along with that you were going to confirm this person, because you don't want to, negatively, give them a negative impression on the city, and effectively fire them 15 days into their new job.
Right.
It's not, I don't know how anybody can vote no in good faith with somebody, even if they're acting on real information, I don't know how they can vote no.
So they do get paid in this, they don't get paid?
It's about when they get on the payroll.
It's if you're an appointment, you get paid. If you're a nominee, you don't get
You
paid.
don't get paid, right now currently what it is they're nominated and they don't get paid, they don't start yet. Okay,
And everybody knows about it too, because it's publicly.
Right,
okay,
that's the recruiting issue, because what Rebecca's saying is you want that pressure, you want a little bit of pressure to only. Reject it from a confirmation perspective if it's very material, because otherwise people are not gonna put a name in that. Maybe it's public, the mayor's nominated you for a position. And you get rejected, that's a public thing, and that's what's being raised as an impediment.
What happens if they don't act within 15 days? What's the recourse?
So the charges,
They're in.
They're in,
Right, charter is.
you got 15 days, you don't react.
Is an automatic.
So what, Stephen, I think what you identified is what I said in the beginning, is the linchpin to all of this for me is. Like, you use the word effective. Should they be effective immediately when the mayor says so, or should they have to wait till council acts?
Right.
I think that's the critical question right now, so maybe could we do like an up down on that, just fundamental.
Can you describe what the practical difference would be between that and the nomination process?
They don't get paid till
they don't get
From
paid.
what I understand,
If they did it in the nomination process, they don't get paid. In that scenario, they don't
I
get
know,
paid.
but to Rebecca's point, that's a very clear point, if you're trying to attract talent. And you say, I'm gonna nominate you, good
Great.
luck out there, good
Right.
luck with the world of. If I'm appointing you,
Right.
that means you're working that with them.
No, I understand, but I think what
So-
Bobby's getting at is a hybrid by which
No, I
the
know,
mayor
that's what I'm
appoints, but
saying.
they're really not effective. Right, is that where you're going with that? That's what I'm trying to say.
my presumption in the word effective is that they can make effective changes. We are going to operate under this policy, we are going to start research into this project. Effective means you can affect change within your role. No,
Right, right.
you're hired, yeah, you're,
So what do you advocate, Bobby? I don't understand. Say that, and then I want everyone to maybe summarize their position on this. I'll take it up that. Just because I don't know if we're all aligned on this.
yeah, I don't think that a city employee should start operating in a role until they've been confirmed.
Okay, so you advocate the nomination process then?
It doesn't, I love words, so I wrote, they could say mayor proposes, council certifies, mayor submits, council.
So
approves.
what's there today is minimal to you then based on current language of the charter?
Yes,
Okay.
the word, I think the word appointment in itself is problematic because it's causing all this consternation.
Do we want to just get a sense for the temperature of the room to move forward on this?
So we'll call to it, so you got a motion in a second, so. We can take a vote.
I say about that.
And for what it's worth, the information I have on first read. 2022, and this was being considered on the first read. Miranda, Vieira, and Councilman Citro, so hopefully that my information is correct, but no on it.
We'll vote on the motion. We gotta move forward, guys.
Yes.
So we had a first, we had a second, so now we're doing in favor on basically reverting with stipulating that the words change the way.
Can I roll
Can
call?
I have a friendly amendment? A second.
Second.
So what if we do the current proposal with not to be paid until confirmed? That's the issue you guys are concerned on. You don't want them to be in the job and paid until they're confirmed by the city council. I still think it's important to have them be appointed by the mayor. I think that's a very, I mean, I've done three presidential transitions and 2 gubernatorial transitions. You do not attract talent by nominating people. So you could have a caveat that says they don't get paid until city council confirms or doesn't act, and then they get the job automatically.
I know it doesn't sound like I you, but I think, I mean, have we considered that it's actually misleading? To tell somebody they've been appointed and they're in the job for 15 days, oh, and by the way, you gotta show up on Thursday, because council's got to confirm you.
I'm too certain, so I don't understand how it works.
Thank God, it's gonna stay.
So we go back to.
But then what's the difference in the words?
You know, Eric to make a suggestion that you ask the city council how this has been working the last few years, I think. That might be worthwhile.
They're really the big appointments are at the beginning of an administration. I don't know how much changeover there's been in the last 2 years.
I don't understand the inception of the change.
Right.
2023. You know, and I also don't understand some of the practical nature behind the memo. A lot of it's speculative without any examples.
Was it the inception of the change tied to the story accounting whereby? There's a lot of,
Again, that's my understanding. I don't wanna be, I'm not authoritative on it.
It's the timing. The timing would imply.
yes. So going to also see the vote.
I mean, let's say this, whatever we do, city council's got to approve it anyway. So if they don't like it, it's not going on the ballot.
Okay, so where are we saying? That's, I guess,
Yes, we're gonna call the question.
So I guess going back to the motion was to revert essentially.
You know, I,
With stipulating will fulfill analyzed language. The motion is revert to the prior language by which the mayor appoints.
yeah, to be specific, as there was some other cleanup changes I'm not supposed to.
Right.
So the motion was to substitute the word, remove the word nominate and substitute the word appoint. In all instances, and to remove the word appoint existing and substitute the word firm.
So
And there was a friendly amendment offered, it's just asked.
There was a motion and second,
Yeah,
sorry, and if you wanna do the friendly amendment. He either has to accept, I'm sorry.
I was just accepting.
I'm sorry.
Before we go to that.
I was gonna say. He either has to accept the friendly amendment, which is not in Robert's Rules of Order, but generally accepted, because Robert says go along, get along. You don't really need me unless there's a crisis. That being said, if not, then I believe you have to, it's a substitute motion and you have to vote on the substitute. You have to vote on accepting the substitute motion and.
Right, sure.
And also just did show of hands to work really fast, but it's doing it.
Right.
That's how we've done it, like show of hands, who wants to do this, wants to do that.
Can you remind us what your friend?
Then we can formalize it.
yeah, then would you be comfortable with us voting on the amendment and propose it, then we could.
I was trying to get with their issue on pay,
Yeah,
which is the issue of somebody being.
So let's maybe understand where we stand on the notion of. It being more like it was with stipulating word act, so. So then it's an all in favor question, right? And that's for the chair to ask, and then we'll see who wishes to just go back, I'll use it to someone else.
since it's a mix, then we would do a roll call.
Well, I haven't asked, they was, I would like to know, is there still time for that, for them changing, why they changed it originally? First place in 2000.
Well, we can ask for that, but I think we want a sense for the group's feelings on this issue now. So I think it's an all in favor question of the seconded motion to summarize, make it closer to what it was before.
Might do a roll call, but since we have a plurality.
Yeah.
But
We can just raise our hand.
That's what I wanted to do, right? We just do that.
Right.
Everybody needs to know, let me say this, who wants to keep it as is?
Can I do y'all one thing, y'all?
Can I just do this, just to get a sense, then we'll go back here.
All in favor, raise your hand.
Of the motion.
Of the motion, raise your hand.
1, 2, 3, 5, 6.
All opposed.
So we're processing a recommendation and based on that to to unwind this and go closer to where it was, correct?
So too early, we're looking at all the alternatives.
The motion falls. And we're going to, I guess, it's going to change or we're gonna. What question I asked, I
It has been
want
appointed as an official recommendation.
Yeah, there you go. People get planning.
Whether we confirm it or not,
okay.
So we didn't quite get going as fast.
Yeah,
We're almost to us.
Yeah, no.
Wow.
You want to go in a break, or take us away? You guys want a break, or you want to keep going?
probably the high, keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going. Or that's.
Okay, so we have that, we'll have to work on language and make sure you see it and bless it. We can do, we make a note of that. And. Okay. Serious review.
There was also a city attorney memo, is that a new memo related to this?
No, this was the second thing from a few years ago
Okay,
that was out there before and was attached to what the mayor gave us tonight, some deals.
okay.
It was going back to the reasons, we got motions and everything that. There's also a question on here that I don't know if we actually answered, even though I'd like to just skip it and delete it, you can't do that, you wanna talk about those things.
Yeah.
So this is should interim appointments, including the appropriate length of time, the department head should serve in interim capacity be reviewed. It's one of those things again, where we don't have the substance of the issue, makes it hard. We can ask for that and move on if you wish. Or if you wish, we can speak about it.
That was what came from council, and I reviewed it and I didn't have any proposed changes that everybody read on 6.03 and there was.
Yeah, I mean, that would be nice.
Yeah.
So we're okay with everything else? With the stipulation that. Thank you, Ron, for the assist. Okay. When we talk about 6.08, the question was whether or not. The language in here would be applicable with 5.15.
That's probably what I said.
Before I get into that, I wanted to recognize we had our son of office, listening to Jessica Ellingsworth. We have a summer program with the firm and they have the option, it's completely voluntary whether they come to my meetings or not.
Oh. Welcome.
How do you feel?
Good dose of local government.
You should have told us at the beginning.
I looked at the sections and Bobby, you're right, the language in here is the same. I think though what is important is the context of it. One is in the section regarding departments and one is in the section regarding overall operations of the city. If we were to untangle these two and try to separate out, one is just departments, one is just boards. I think we'd have to add additional language, so we'd have to do clarifying language to make sure that it was understood in the right context. I think the reason it's in here twice is to emphasize the fact that the same process works for outside boards as it does for internal departments and any other thing that might be considered a board. So while it is consistent with each other in the sections, it is additional language, but I think the overall context of where it is in the charter makes sense. Happy to answer any questions.
I think we had a great discussion at our last meeting about changes like this, which are not substantive. I think they're important because they kind of dictate how the charter flows and what information is included and not, but. You know, relative to the discussion we just had, maybe this is, I'll get everybody's feedback, maybe this is one. We wait until there's an opportunity to do a larger kind of look through language in a separate process than the one we're undertaking now.
Captured by the new business last time, the idea of off your screen, that would be better.
Right, because if
Okay,
I was right as starter from the beginning, I wouldn't have it. But I also, the amount of changes you have to make today.
Right.
Is pretty wholesale as far as separating out the mayoral power and the council.
With that being the case, I made a note, we incorporate that as an example in the other item regarding off years for new mining. Does anyone have any objections to leaving this as is, or any preferences for changing it? Are we good with this? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Ken. We're back to budget. So. We're back to budget. And we were. We already entered that, so. We're back to the two elements around this concept of. Of debt being a standalone vote. Let's take that one first. Hopefully, do you guys need a minute to look at what city CFO sent? Or do you want me to bring that up? Bring it up on the screen?
I would just say.
Because we heard the council chair's views on the issue, but do you want to see what Dennis provided? I can do that.
Well,
It came in before.
before, let me just take temperature, because what I heard from the chair. Was that it could be handled by ordinance and that flexibility wasn't a bad thing, and so. He did mention that it's in the charter, he criticizes it, but we did see that. Recommendation on it, so I'm inclined not to make a change, but I mean, before we pull up other stuff and get into discussion, let's just see if everybody's inclined to make a change based on it.
Okay,
I too was not inclined to make a change based on what the chair said. What I heard a lot of, I get it, and it's simple, but to me, the information's in there. And you gotta do your homework, you gotta drill down. The ordinance would be fine, that didn't offend me at all, to put it in an ordinance, but I would, at the end of the day, the less we amend charter, the better you are, right? It really is, it's better for the public.
sure.
They already have a standalone vote on the debt, it's just packaged up. I think what he was advocating is the wrong word, obviously, but. Suggesting maybe is that there would be a vote of debt along with the project. Problem is, he said basically 100% projects require debt. So practically I don't know how that would play out, and I think for that reason, I'm okay with keeping it.
Show of hands, leave it as is. Thank you. The other question we came back to, do that sometimes, was this concept of the city council. Being able to or not able to initiate a budget amendment. So we talked about that twice in depth, both with the chairs here, today and before. The chair was correct, technically, they can't force that an amendment put before them, but it also sounds like they have a good relationship with the current administration. And that they're having an opportunity to collaborate on these things within the current budget process, especially we explained several times. Well, and why that's effective. Show of hands. How many people are okay leaving things as they are? Is there in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm gonna say leave it, keep moving. So that is question 3. Show of hands thing really does work. Okay, now what I would like to do is focus the question for, I'll get us back to where we were on this issue. Then I need, with Ken's guidance, to make sure all of you are confirmed that we'd like to ask our esteemed Alderman Allison to speak to this. She's also provided a memo. But going back to the question, what we're really asking here is whether or not the approval or allocation or approval of funds should be coupled with implementation expectations. I'm summarizing the question, right? So those are two different things, paying for it and getting it done. And I think this is related to, we had a public speaker last time around the concept of the general rule around deliver projects on time, keep your promises, don't let cost overruns kill our budgets. Those things are practical issues. So I would like, and I hope I say this the right way. How do I say this? How do I ask the group to allow this?
You do that as chair,
Yes.
to see if there's unanimous consent to allow Allison to speak on this topic.
Sure, do we have unanimous consent to allow that? Speak on this topic?
Is there unanimous consent for Allison Hewitt to come and speak up on this topic?
That's Madam Chair.
Yes. Yeah.
Makes me.
Thank you for the work you did in advance. Would you let me bring it up, or do you just want to summarize it from what you want to provide? It's up to
Bring it up.
you. Okay. So you're good, or do you want me to bring it up?
Bring it up.
Okay, I need to. Give me just a second, and I'll launch this. Thank you. So this is the background. I'm gonna let you take over from here, just tell me if I can scroll. That was fine, so everyone can see it here.
Thank you very much. One of the things that in sitting over there as the alternate, to be able to say that there's a lot of discussion you guys have as it relates to the council and the administration. And a lot of mine come from what's about the people, the voters, the constituents. You don't have a whole lot of that in your conversation because a lot of the questions come from the city council or from the administration. So this is coming from, I have been working on infrastructure projects, housing development, community centers. I worked on around the state and in South Carolina. The issue that comes up in the charter is, and what's impacting the community is that the city council approves a budget. And that budget approval is workshops, is to the community, is very community facing. But then, once it gets to the administration picks and chooses which projects they will work on. And so there are communities who wait for years and don't get their sidewalks done, they don't get their projects done. And there's no explanation, there's nothing to say to the administration, it's in the budget. We've approved it, give us a report on it. Or they'll say we're working on it, it's still pending, it's in legal. And you have the budget that is, again, public facing, which I have to say with the chair. The community communicates more with city council than the mayor's office. The community feels that they have more ability to touch their city council than they have the administration. So when we say that we're going to do the sidewalks, there is a list of sidewalks as a schedule in which is appropriated money for the sidewalks. But that schedule is not followed. It is wherever the projects, the priority projects of the administration, and then we have, let's say, where I live in East Tampa, where we are our communities are pushed down further and further. And so.
Yeah, you can just, yeah.
So I don't know I have some recommendations here, but most of my recommendations, because I'm more of a policy person than a charter person. So I have recommendations I provided to you on how to be more transparent and accountable in here. But it needs to be some timeline, some public timeline. So we give the budget to the administration and for the most part, the council approves the city budget. That's given to the mayor. There's some changes here and there, but not a lot. But the mayor doesn't have the workshops in the communities that actual council members have. And so it would be recommended that when you do the budget requires timelines and commitments. So if we have a project that it may take a year to get to, that's something that should be public facing. Because right now, when we do the budget, understanding too, that the community sometimes doesn't know about site readiness for projects that may take some time, especially if you're in the underserved community. You might find a brownfield or something that's in contaminated land and things like that, so that might make it be longer. But what we are feeling in the community and the public is that the high profile projects, the projects with people who have money, and the projects will have the headlines, they move. So whether we're in the budget or not, to do an affordable housing project, it takes 4 years, whether it's ready to go or not. But as Stephanie Pointer says, that if the administration wants it, it's a high-speed train that comes from the community, it's a little train that could. So how do we make sure that this charter is equitable for the community and not just what an administration wants? And I'm not saying it's just this one. I'm third generation from Tampa. And so it's not just this administration, there's several administrations. And a lot of times at these meetings, the people are not brought up. The people are not being considered with these charter amendments. So some of these can be just regular recommendations that could be potentially ordinances. But I just wanted at least, as you were talking about changes to the budget, that you would consider and at least know what is happening with smaller, not large scale community projects. We should have implementation start dates, completion dates, and if it's going to take longer than a year, some public explanation on why it's going to take longer than a year. Annual public reporting requirement. I know that y'all have seen the annual reports. They are so pretty and they are such rah-rah, sis-mah-bah, but there's nothing that be able to say, we are not gonna have a park in such and such East Tampa because of this budget here and this budget, because when the people see it in the budget, when it's passed year after year after year, nothing happens. And they just say it's still in the process, it's just less trust with our administration. And if there is projects that are continuously not done, that's one of the reasons why when they say that the changes to the budget should maybe come from council, because the community and smaller developers and smaller neighborhood associations are going to council, be able to say, especially in neighborhood associations. But we don't get that same administration, same response when it comes from administration. So if the community is a groundswell, be able to say, we've been focusing on this, it has been budgeted, in some cases it has been budgeted for a couple of years and nothing's happened. So, you know, whether those funds should be reallocated. You know, is there another project locally or another neighborhood association that would be helpful? But again, because it is such a high climb to get into the administration or someone from the administration to be able to get them to the project, because again, they're busy. Most of the people I know go to their councilpersons. And so I also have a prioritized infrastructure readiness and development areas, especially CRAs. So the challenge we have too is everyone understand what a CRA is. So the taxes in those areas stay in there for redevelopment. Well, again, when I say administration, I'm not talking this administration, I understand the last administration too. So city dollars that are designated for CDBG, Community Development Block Fund, things like that, The city money that are supposed to go in that area doesn't. The way the chapter 163 has is that the CRA dollars are supposed to supplement what the city does. But if you look at the budget, our budget in areas where the CRAs are very limited for city dollars and only does the CRA dollars. And so I'm hoping that we'll be able to discuss that public infrastructure that was supposed to be what CRA dollars can help for, to be able to get the prime the pump. So we're gonna have a schedule for sidewalks, then use some of the CRA dollars to do, I think it's like, I don't know how much was got off of that money. If we're gonna do 15 blocks of sidewalks, then use some of the CRA money to just get that started and to finish it, but we cannot use all the CRA dollars to do what the city is supposed to do anyway. So, in conclusion, the city gets the budget, the city makes a recommendation to city council. City council has public workshops. Again, not many changes, but once that budget goes to administration, the people feel very disconnected. Because only projects gonna move are the administration choice projects and not the ones that are always in the budget. Lots of them.
Thank you, first of all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here for any questions.
When I hear you speaking, I think of a few things, right? So the difference in the county is our administrator works for our commissioners who exert some of the pressure you're referring to in this scenario that you may not have. I think of it as just how you measure performance. Whether it's service levels, project overages, completion times, et cetera. And how do you make accountability in the process so that occurs? To me, this isn't even a funding issue, this is a broader issue around performance. In communication and citizen engagement. Where you're headed, I'm paraphrasing, right, is how do we get to a place where maybe the concept around priorities, because it's a strategic planning issue too, concept around priorities, planning, deadlines, how does that get the same kind of attention, scrutiny and formality as the budget does on the financial side, right? That's kind of where I think you're headed on that. Right? How does that become as, again, binding in the beginning, but control so that changes are just unknown. Anyway, thoughts from the group, Ron, you have your.
I was just gonna say that you mentioned Bonnie Watson's position getting pressure of county from the commissioners who get the direct feedback, but big differences in the city, the mayor's, Bonnie's not elected by the people, but the mayor's elected by the people, so that pressure would come directly from people.
Right, maybe it's not as channeled as it is, because I see the commission versus Bonnie dynamic every day, and even the work I'm doing. I'm committing to timelines, I'm holding people accountable, and it's not everyone knows what's on that. A, we have grants we have to do it, but B, that's how you run projects and programs, and that's my background. But I don't know how the people pressure is as directly influencing as commissioner pressure, because commissioner pressure is a phone call. And then everyone jumps, it makes it hard to prioritize, I'll tell you that, because anytime we start here, it changes on Tuesday, it changes on Thursday. We'll go that build.
So my question would be, if Allison and the group, is conceptually, I think we read the same way, right? Certain public, right, and informed transparency is critical. But is that something that should find its way into a charter? And if it found its way into, what would it even look like? That's what I'm trying to get my head around. Or is this something that we're going to have resolutions and but you know, thank you for the work that went into that. These are fairly important to have this ability to facilitate that conduct, because that's what you're trying to do, is encourage good conduct.
What I'd like to do, maybe after you ask your, or make your point actually, is get Ken's thoughts on. Can this be fit into a charter construct? Like just thoughts on where it might go to be best, think that's effective. Okay.
I think the last meeting, what we were discussing is, making a requirement for it to be done within the fiscal year. I think that's what we were talking about, or if it can't be done within, right, that's when it was like, that's not practical, right? So then it does come back to Ken, like, what's the best way to word it, is it projects within a certain budget or within a certain amount? Or
Well, before we get there.
I think it's less about those details and more more about the concept of formalizing.
Deadlines.
Well, formalizing approach around the entirety of delivery for projects, how that's managed and people are held accountable towards it. In a binding way, but Ken, what are your thoughts on?
Yeah, and just an update, the group asked me to research other charters to see if there was some kind of language, looked at the dozen nearest in size to Tampa, there is no language out there. We deployed one of our AI bots to scrape all the other charters and they didn't find anything. So there's not a comparable that I've been able to see on this topic. That's in the charter. Now, it could be done. We'd have to look at either adding a provision, separate section that deals with just kind of reporting or something along those lines. Or we could work it into either the mayoral section or the council authorities. But we'd have to spend some time in terms of crafting.
We be pioneers.
Right, you'd be the pioneers. You would be taking what Allison drafted here, the other comments that you've received, and narrowing that down to specific language that then could be implemented through either the budget process, the annual reporting, the things that.
How about resolutions or ordinances?
Could be done that way as well.
That'd be easier.
To Allison's points are very well taken, right? And what's happening in the community is super important. But I think our discussion has already made an assumption that I'm not sure is a proper assumption, which is that by approving a budget, you're mandating that every project get done. I don't think that's part of the budgetary process, right? And so what we're presuming is that just because the city council approved it in the budget, that they absolutely want to get done at all costs, right? And if it is a brownfield, maybe it doesn't go forward, or if there's some other issue, maybe it doesn't move forward. There's implementation discretion that happens in it. And I think that the way we're asking the question presumes that once the budget passes, there's a mandate that it absolutely has to get done. I don't think that's the case. I don't think anybody on council would say this. And that's probably why I didn't find it in the other chart.
Other thoughts? On this?
I'm thinking, I understand what you're saying, Ron. And you know, perception, from people's perspective, what's getting done and all things that are getting done, but if you're a person that consistently sees things that aren't getting done, like sidewalks or parks or gates or whatever in your neighborhood, from your perspective, you're thinking things that were approved are not getting done. But maybe in your part of town, sidewalks are fixed the next day or that next weekend, and you're like, the city's doing what it's supposed to do. And I don't know, I'm not saying that's what's happening, but that maybe it's just all about perspective. And I'm just throwing that out there.
All right, question for you, Ken. Could the charter, I say dictate, but use the right words, prescribe that? Let's say after the budgeting process is done, there's another process, because right, they talk about process at the highest level, short term of budgeting, by which all of the approved items are brought back to council with some basic information around estimated budgets, estimated durations, estimated start times, completion times. Right, that racking and stacking is going to convey priorities, because effectively priority is say yes to some things, no to others. Is that a feasible construct that part of the charter? Not the procedures, not that little level of, you know, what gets on every page. Could something like that be formalized? Forcing, by which the administration comes back to council and says, you gave us all this money to do stuff, here's our plan to execute.
That kind of reporting exists in some format right now, so there's certainly, we could put in language that requires that reports that itemize some of the items that Allison has and others have said have to be done on X basis, whether it's annually or however this group wanted to describe it. The key is it would be a different kind of thing for charter, just because they don't typically get into that level of management when it comes to these kind of procedures. We tend to be at a much higher level. But if it is a community need, it's something that could be done.
Could it not be at the same level as how we describe the budget process in the charter? It's just a different process.
Right. It's what you're imposing is an obligation on the administration to report to the council on X, Y, and Z.
The plan, progress, status issue,
As
as opposed to
a, right now, there's a general requirement to report to council. This would be making that very specific as to whatever you deem to be a project. You know, you might set a dollar threshold, you might set something else as far as scale, so it's not every single resident.
Ashley brought up infrastructure and paving was actually used as the example in council's question to us. I think if we could focus on infrastructure, I'm deep in the south, we got infrastructure problems, I know the whole city has infrastructure issues, whether it's sidewalks, pedestrian infrastructure, storm roads, whatever it is. So maybe regarding infrastructure projects, we could have some sort of a reporting with a time frame that has to be given to council, because to be honest, otherwise, I don't know how you would bake this into the charter effectively.
I don't know either, but.
I guess an ordinance or a resolution. So I'm not sure this finds its way into a chart.
Yeah,
I don't know. Good points. Any thoughts on that, Ken? How best that, we have an aspirational goal, we try to flesh out whether we can put some teeth in it, right?
Right, it comes down to your prioritization, whether you feel this rises to the level that the people should vote on it, whether to put it in the charter. Or this falls into the other box you've had so far, which are recommendations to council to pursue through another method, whether it be a resolution. Without signing looking out for me.
I mean, I would say this, I'm sure we all agree that. People in a community who doesn't. Really perceive much say their projects are as important as everybody else, about it. It's a little concerned with putting in the charter to. Reporting piece of budgetary impact, and that affects city council too. We heard earlier today that there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of projects, right, for somebody to spend the people power figuring out, why that easement issue is from people for an extra month. So trying to figure something out, or what the grading issue is with the contractor or something like that, and report on that. Could be significant, it could be a significant issue, so I absolutely agree that those projects should be equally prioritized, and absolutely. Essentially that. Mandating reporting of all projects in the charter is. Good policy for the city.
Is it good for the community?
Well, I would argue what's good for the city is good for the community overall. I mean, I think that our elected officials have a responsibility to implement in a way that's responsive to all the constituents of the city.
I struggle with this one, everything else that's just like so, so important in transparency. Community, close to the community, city council, transparency. It's how the government functions, and it doesn't function well without it. How you put that in a charter in a way that is effective. I'm struggling with, and what Ron says is you have to be careful that you are not then running up costs of projects that already are not moving forward. For those very reasons, you certainly don't want something so detailed as it's held up in, Rebecca Kurt's office for 2 weeks because she's out on maternity leave or something. You don't want that level, I mean, that's like. Adding a bunch of money onto the projects, I certainly wanted to know why sidewalks are done the way that sidewalks are done, and I wanted to know that while I was at the city. Sorry, I should have said that, but I mean, yeah, I mean.
We're all thinking.
We're all thinking it, but I struggle with that being something that we can verbalize in the charter in a way that's effective. To get it to where it needs to be. And yet I struggle with not doing something because I think it's important, so that's right.
I think it's a two-part, but going back to. You're right, you wouldn't get down to the level of someone's out of the office, but I will tell you. Any program or project management group in any government has the information we're talking about.
Right.
Start dates, finish dates, honestly, compiling should be easy. I saw them, I only said it from my experience, I don't wanna inject myself, but. I'm requiring him for $355 million of grant funding. It can be done, it's just a question of will and leadership. But leaving that aside, the question of whether or not it goes into the charter might be a two-part. In principle, do we want it there? And then the second is the how. I just don't want the how if you guys agree. the how to stop the why, right? So, but it's up to you, it's up to you.
How about we
Because it sounds like we can do it, it's a question of do we, on to a question. I guess one
we
question.
have confidence, right, to the council on this, I mean, I think. And I can go and post something that I was discussing now, that we propose a statement that it's important that projects be prioritized based on. The needs of the city and the communities, not factors beyond that. And that good communication is important, and we commend the administration and the council about communication.
It can fall into the off-charter recommendations list, if I were to go down
I would be interested to look at some proposed language.
for charter.
Just that's okay for us, just see what exactly.
Give us something tangible to talk about. Would the group be okay with that as a next step and we'll move on? Somebody who said, not sure about being in the charter, but it might be because it's devoid of seeing what that could look like. Would that be helpful when we're setting up something?
I mean,
I don't think we can move on, because I think we'd have to, I mean, when you say put that in the charter, I think we have to give some directions to what we want in the charter.
Right, the language would reflect where we're going, but I think that the suggestion was. Start the conversation with something tangible as opposed to. Subject to this group's review, final changes.
But I don't even understand what you mean, but I like what language to do what. Because there were like 6 or 7 recommendations that would also put up.
I think it's language around this concept of reporting and transparency. And engaging the council on some basis around the status of projects. Again, you would have to talk about what goes in there. Kind of the substance of the content Allison covered, yeah.
I think, like you said, there is usually a project status Excel or whatever, somebody is in charge of holding that, I feel like, and. Publicizing maybe that information somewhere in a basic form online, so we can at least monitor and see what's going on. It doesn't have to be reported on every city council meeting, but at least it's there for people to go check the status of it, I think that would be helpful. And if you put that to a vote to the community that we will be reporting on the status of projects, I think that's gonna pass unanimously. I don't think anybody's gonna oppose that. It's just, like you said, finding the wording to put inside the charter. I just think it's important that people are.
So I'd like to do a kind of bipolar vote to see where we stand. One is to couch this as just an overall recommendation, like some of the other things we might discuss. The other is to just explore the concept of charter language. Show of hands, how many people wish for this to be a general recommendation as opposed to go explore the charter? 2, how many wish to explore the concept of the charter?
In both.
Prior preference on that, so. First question is general recommendation, not a charter change, show of hands. 2, second preference would be explore but not commit at this point to. Modifying or recommending a modification to the charter to account for the substance of what we discussed, show of hands for that. So we have 3, 4.
I missed too much. I that showed better. I don't know what it means like.
I guess I would make the point that I would like to see some language that could go either way. It could be, depending on how we all feel, it could wind up being a recommendation to the council. Or it could be potentially, a charter addition, but we would have options.
Yeah.
And
We react to something versus.
I'm leaning the recommendation way, I wouldn't want to look at.
You would recognize the mayor's representative, Marlene.
Question to be recognized.
Yes.
To be recognized.
Thank you, and I know I'm a member of the public in this capacity in the administration. I do just wanna make the distinction between the CRA budget and the city administration budget. I think Allison was speaking about both interchangeably, and I would just ask for that distinction. And then I would just take a moment to recognize what actually is out there public on the web. What projects, I would argue that every major department has a strategic plan that is published and that is updated on a regular basis. That does include community engagement. And then we also do a community-wide survey. And so there is a lot of public engagement and a lot of plans. And then in addition to, there are standing council motions where we are required to go to council and give updates on different projects. And so those are like, and it depends on what it is, but it's like some of them are quarterly basis, some of them are biannual, it depends on what summer month. So, I would really recommend, maybe, I would ask Allison for more specifics. There is a sidewalk master plan, there is a stormwater master plan. A lot of them are tied to different budgets within the administration's budget. So I would just kind of fact check before, and I'm happy to provide any additional information. Just let me know what else you guys think.
Thank you.
Yep.
The original question was really forcing the project completion. Once the budget, and we've kind of, I think, talked ourselves into transparency and stuff, but if what you said is true, the spreadsheets all exist. Remember, and certainly a council member can say, I want to see the spreadsheet on that, get it. You get it.
Or do what Marley said around motions before council takes care.
I think the problem is people have to search the information out versus having it be put in front of them. But I also think that's not even really what we're at least being asked in council, the specific question. Last meeting, we talked specifics about timing being attached to specific projects. And if I was going to answer that question, should funds approved by the council, such as allocations for paving, be required to be expended within that same fiscal year? I would say they should. And, you know, last meeting, I said, maybe we should get someone in here in the contract administration department to talk about what that could look like. You know, if funds had to be expended within the fiscal year, does that limit the amount of contractors that can service the city? It's a big deal. If it doesn't, then I know the city has purchased some of its own paving equipment. Maybe that is a question we can answer yes, and send it up to council and see what they have to say.
And it does fall with a, or other time period. It says fiscal year, or within the specified time period. So I'm there. So regardless, it's adding.
Yeah.
Concreteness to.
Specific time,
Right, yes.
What happens today if it's not expected?
The project doesn't get done.
It's
Right, so then what's happening if we need a change? It's still, if it doesn't get done, it's still not.
We talked about that last time, how there's like really no teeth behind it. And what I said was, I'd be happy to send it up, even if it didn't necessarily have teeth, because I think it's a great question.
So I think the issue is that what is the recourse? It's the only recourse is further delaying the project.
What do you mean by that? Can you explain that?
If you budget for it in a specific year, and you're saying, well, if you haven't spent it, I'm gonna take it away. That's the recourse for not acting on it quickly enough. But if the whole point of bringing it up was you wanted to act on it quickly, then why would you then now take it away and not fund the improvement?
Well, there's only,
That's the conundrum that I have with this whole thing. I don't know what to do.
I agree, I agree. I think the only recourse is political. Like council approves a paving project in a particular neighborhood, and it has to be completed within whatever time period specified, and it's not completed. Right, but other than that, you're right, I mean, there really is no.
And the citizens in that area are upset about it and they want it to happen quickly. And so the city solution is to take the money away and not do it at all. Like, I don't, like, what is, I'm not saying there isn't a recourse, I'm just asking. Taking the money away can't be the recourse, because on the side, I'm gonna get a bill at that location.
It seems like it is political. Of course, if people aren't happy. We do it with council person in there.
I just wanted to explain my vote, which is, sorry. Oh, sure. My fundamental belief system about the charter, and no one has to agree with me on this, is that the charter sets up the form of government. And it's up to our elected officials in that to do the politics and to do the good government. The charter doesn't mandate good government, it mandates the structure of our government and that we elect people to do the work. And that's what it is.
Exactly, it's what's it? Obviously.
I would fully agree with that, I think the sticking point So there is in something that goes in the charter, and we have to use a shall, right? What is that shall? What shall this person or branch or department do, right? Is that what we have to figure out right now, or are we moving on to?
Well, when we did a quick poll, it sounded like we wanted to explore that anyway. And to have something to react to. Because it might. This feel differently when we see language, say, yeah, principle, that sounds great, it's not gonna tell you how, it's not gonna have procedures. It could be shall report or shall provide this information, something to that effect. We wanna proceed on that basis and keep moving and we'll talk about this.
Well, did we have a majority?
Last time I was from doing another quick show of hands. I've asked about general recommendations, I think two of you prefer just putting it on the general recommendations list, and I think four of you, some people were in the bathroom. We'll say these other. Four of you said, you get undecided upon your return. But the four said, let's have something that we react to next time we meet, just to think about the concept of it going into a fourth time. Well, let's do it again. So I'll ask.
You can count four of
How many wishes to explore adding this to the charter by virtue of looking at the sample and having more conversation? Show of hands. 1, 2, 3.
But I think last time we were talking about like transparency or something. Is this time are we talking about like the specific time period? Just general charter language that.
I think it's around accountability, timelines, yeah. I mean, it would, few of us would probably have to put our heads together to get something for you to look at, but it would give you something to look at. So we only have 4, so we can have a majority.
We did not have majority.
So we have
And like
4
Eric-
and 2, but that
like
means people
Eric
haven't
said,
voted.
One competition was about transparency and the other one was about this timeline.
So one was a general recommendation that we,
Presuming that. The other.
by that preference,
So
so,
it's 4.
no, I know, I just have preference in case. Clearly, but some people maybe don't have a preference at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to keep discussing it, I don't feel like I can like, I don't feel like I did anything to. There's a CIP viewer website that is extremely robust, like to Marla's point. It shows a lot of information about money is gonna be spent, and what fiscal year, and what phase it's for, like during a project.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that this is telling us everything, but the fact that everybody at the table will know about this, man. I'm assuming, and we're about to vote on it, I don't feel like we discussed it enough, so we're gonna take action.
What's the website?
CIP New York. So nice with the maps and dots.
Tampa, it's called Tampa CIP viewer. Okay.
And it says there's 198 projects in there, I haven't looked at.
Well, let me do this then, let me ask you guys the question that was put before us to see how you think. The question is, when you get approved for budget, should you be tied to some notion of delivery time? It could be fiscal year, it could be long. So the question is, should funds approved by city council be required to be expended in the agreed upon time frame? However we get there is immaterial, it's just the time frame. Could be fiscal year, it could be longer, it could be five. Show of hands. How many people believe that approved funds should be tied to a delivery time frame? One. Should be tied to a binding
Yeah.
delivery time frame. So 3. So 3 people.
Teach specifics and.
Again, but the question before us is.
Except I was just the problem is that there's a difference between infrastructure like you're talking about there. Or other projects, which I think we've discussed, can fall into situations of unanticipated delays that you can't legislate.
Why don't we just say maybe?
But it presumes too that passing a budget is a mandate to do the project, which I don't think it is. I mean, and if it was that. What is it mandated that? So if you're that project has to be. People you can't.
Just only if the budget item will so make out.
So 3.
What we would be doing is we would be changing our complexion.
Alright, let's see, go ahead.
No, I think it's safe to say something like there is a reasonable expectation that the money that is put in a specific project will be spent in it. I think a reasonable expectation is good, but the word binding, I would almost just say that you said should be binding. My mind, that's shall.
Alright,
So.
Reasonable expectations.
What's that?
Reasonable expectations and further.
I'm saying the budgeting process, I think there's a reasonable expectation that you're gonna spend the money. I don't know if the charter actually communicates that.
so 3 of you said yes. How many people believe we should leave this alone and not change? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, answer.
What is it now? What is it now? There's nothing.
Well, it doesn't cover Wisconsin.
Okay.
Doesn't cover it all. The keep moving.
So it's just. It's just us to make sure people are aware of this website that there is a plan with the deadline.
When we get to general recommendations, we can still revisit that if you want to throw it back into that, that's fine, it's up to you. I think it's an important concept, we agree with the substance of the idea. It's just, the council decided to do it, right? So. He may have been the last one before the new section. You know, walking.
Look at us. It's right where it's set with your thumb. Might as well finish.
More so later tonight, so
I do have an easy one, I like these, they don't have to very often. There is in fact. No zoning adjustment board to the. Chief building inspector as its ex officio director. So I think here, maybe I'm wrong, at a minimum, we would want to clean up this language. To remove an example that is no longer true. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
So those two. So. We can track that and have it. So I. Update. That's that. Alright, well. So these are really long sections, everything in the charter is pasted. I'm presuming everyone had a chance to look at this on today's session. Do we have any changes to 10.01?
Mommy.
Come on, you guys. This is a good section. Oh, shoot. You should have that change. No, really? Not one.
Maybe I should just ask, how many people know that changes and then we'll keep moving.
We're here for you.
Alright, just okay.
Keep rolling, man.
First things first. Alright, so Chairman Clendenin opted in and had the opportunity to opine on when elections occur. Did anybody give any, anybody give any thoughts to that?
What you said makes sense.
I agree.
I've given a lot of thought of this over 14 years. And then for 6 years, I didn't pay thought to it, but I've given a lot of thought to it. It's a lot of money. It is a lot of money to build these. And you get lower turnout. At the same time, she's 1,000% right. If you try to put charter amendments, you have a constitutional amendments, those were county amendments, and all the elections and all the judges, you get nothing. Like, people don't even see them, in fact, like the drop off is so dramatic. You get everything he said was right. That is my thoughts that I have had before. I've thought about it a lot of money.
Way back in the day, locally, especially, people were much more civically engaged. Voter turnout in the early 70s or late 60s was like percent, something places like that. And I think today, so many people are kind of obviously in their own lives, but in the presidential election and international conflicts and whatever it may be, I think we need to have independent elections in March to isolate city issues. Otherwise, our city issues could get caught up in the madness, all these other cycles. So I agree with the chair. What said.
I disagree, Bobby.
Yes and no. If I thought about a lot about this too, if I could offer. A middle ground or intermediate point, what do you all think about moving? Keeping it in an odd number year, but just moving it to November, because people are just used to, like, Americans vote in November. It's just kind of out of the blue, like, oh, it's March, we're gonna vote for city council, it's like.
You just sometimes lump it in.
Midterms, or you're saying
Lump it
in between?
Pepper.
So it would be, because of governor, so state and national are even number of years. But city's always on odd. Keep city odd, but just vote in November, because people are just used to voting in November.
Isn't the gubernatorial, no, that's this year, 26. So you're saying 27 instead of March, November.
So I hypothetical. See what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, but I'm not really sure. You get your city votes in March, but we. I think it's in November of that year, what's the difference? The word March, and it's, you know, I know the elections, there are people that voted. You know, for that strong, you might not, I'm not sure you could go through a charter amendment, change your vote from March to November.
And that's like, I think your approach is really just to increase turnout, right? Ultimately, at the basis of what you're saying, that it's in November, that you believe it.
I personally,
Sorry, I mean,
yeah, I mean, the turnout in the city is pitiful, it's just embarrassing. I don't think anybody disagrees with that, but. Yeah, I mean, how do we increase it even just a little bit? If people are used to voting in November, put it in November, I don't know, just throwing it out there.
I agree that we should have a conversation about what should change in the charter to increase turnout, but I don't know that this would do it. I would like for somebody else to weigh in. I'm just not sure.
I don't know, so you're able to do a charter to.
Unless,
Think of anything, then you could go down, I'm open to ideas.
one thing, which I don't think there's support for this, one thing you could do is move it to the even year, everybody shows up. I mean, city after city, the voter turnout increases, but it sounds like there's, people are more in favor of the counter.
The problem is that. Even in presidential elections, there is drop off in terms of down ballot and you know, Rebecca is and Alan was correct that. You start getting past the federal state elections and it's a precipitous drop off. So on the other hand, yes, voter turnout in spring elections is pathetic. And we're leaving more elections to be decided by a fraction of voting population, but I don't know that there is an easy answer to this.
I think from what we heard from the chair. Changing it could have the impact of making those people who have more money. Better able to participate because in the November election cycle, the costs of participation go up.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all really salient points that I agree with, I think they're very valid. But I mean, if you wanna look at hard data, I'm not recommending we do this, but. If you have an election in an even number year, participation goes up, it's just a fact. People who vote are more diverse, it's just a fact, it's just, that's what the data says. The people who get elected are more diverse, these are just facts of how it turns out. But I'm sympathetic to, I mean, I don't want city issues to get drowned out in a, presidential election, I don't want. City council candidates to get asked about abortion, so I hear both sides, I think both sides have their points, but that's why I'm saying, if people are used to voting in November, let's move it to November. Seems easy to me, but.
So that's an idea, but we just don't know if. I don't know that we would know if it works or not, right? Then we do it.
You wouldn't know if it works or not, it's just, I think,
And the question is, satisfies some level of changing the charter to run that, I say experiment in a good way, but experiment, right?
Has it been in March since the beginning of time or something, or like it's
Well, it's in there
what
now,
did
right?
it March?
It's in-
79.
Oh, it's separate. So something Bobby favors. Either talking about or even advocating Here in November. How about the rest of the group? Not quite there, as a rule, leave it as is. Is that a fair summary without doing a show of hands? We can move on.
I understand the logic, because November is like, it seems like election season and everybody's just in election mode. But there would be an election mode every year in November. Now, before I got civically engaged and involved, I didn't know when elections were coming up. It would just be like, oh, it's time to vote. So I don't know.
Just the question is, people who don't want to vote will probably know when the vote is, because they're gonna do it anyway, but I don't know. I mean,
That
you might pick up a few, yeah, you might pick up a few, I just, is it a charter change is the question from us, as opposed to. Is it a good thought exercise to look for a greater turnout?
I mean, if we're spitballing, wasting big turnout, that's my spitball. I don't know if anybody else is in.
What about you, Steve?
I would be interested to know if there is any examples of. You know, if this has been done in other places and if it's affected turnout. But, and I mean, the only reason why I'm saying if it's not broke, don't fix it, or if we can't prove that that's only gonna increase it, don't change it, is because there are so many other strings tied to. The date of the election,
Yeah,
and I would hate to experiment with that. And affect all the different entities and procedures and processes that are involved, when we don't even have a. Piece of evidence or any fact that we can point to say this will increase it. I'm not putting that on you, like I think that's on all of us to like talk about and look at, but. I'm willing to do it, but I think we ought to have, we gotta be able to point to something that says, oh, it's worked in this place, or here's some data to show how it might improve turnout, because I do think turnout is pitiful. And we should think, if we do nothing else, we should think about anything that we can do to possibly increase it.
It's a larger question and it's a national question, and I would agree that I would be interested to know if certain municipalities have changed their elections from the spring to November. But that alone is not the only question. It would also include for those places that have changed their elections to November. Is there a dramatic decline in terms of down ballot votes cast? And so it's a two-step question at least, and I don't know if we're better to.
We may down ballot votes cast.
Well, as I said, that even in presidential or gubernatorial years, there is a steep drop off in terms of people casting their votes for the top of the ticket. That's down ballot races, and what we've been talking about. By adding now another layer of municipal elections and amendments, there would be a dramatic drop off in terms of votes cast by the time you get down to the bottom of the ballot.
even in the off year when you don't have those other elections happening.
Well, I guess the question is. For municipalities, have they tried moving their elections? What are the results of when those elections were moved? What impact did it have in terms of down ballot races?
Maybe, I mean, honestly, you guys are also in a position to research these things and bring things back, some of you have done that. Do you want, I can capture kind of a CRC group action, those who are interested, dig into this, come back. As of right now, though, it sounds like we don't have any consensus to modify this, we want to keep it. So I'll make note of that with an action item that you guys who want to explore this, will bring things back, and then if it's where we are now, we'll keep moving and just keep it as is. So we do that, so provisional motion is. CRC investigate. That's okay. Without assuming though, again, a pretty big section, any other comments or changes on this?
Yeah, I do. I'm curious to hear on this one too, because I know a couple of us were following along pretty closely with the last special election. To me, that felt like it took forever, and there was a budget finalization process going on in the midst of that election. There was an empty seat for District 5 as the budget discussions were going on, as the budget was being approved. Those are, big decisions that the city council has to make. It's one of their biggest responsibilities, and that seat was empty because it took from June to October to fill that seat ultimately. 4 months or so to get that all wrapped up. I personally am not comfortable with leaving a seat open that long. But I wanna know what everybody.
Well, I think just one question is, rules that call the election for a municipal election, is it the governor or is it the supervisor of elections?
Or a special supervisor elections, if there's a vacancy, so what I'm referring to is if there's a vacancy and on the council or. I guess the mayor for that matter, but I was thinking it would change that.
So for speaks to I'm trying to think it out loud. So two points to that. This is count. Super important, what you said about the time of vacancy and everything that was going on. Nobody could control when that tragedy happened. The filling of that election was super important, and I thought, and there were so many good candidates, that I thought it was super important. I don't get to vote in that one, that was my district for a decade plus, it isn't right now, but I was so happy to see how engaged that election was and all the debates that everybody had and how maybe it was just where I was focused, but it felt like the community was super engaged in that election, and I thought that was amazing, and if the timing was the worst, but I was really glad that all the candidates had the opportunity to air themselves.
No, I hit the tables, I hit my knees, you're good, no.
I don't know that I would take that time away from those candidates in that community to hear from those candidates. And I certainly wasn't jumping up and down when I don't know if this has changed, but when city council, or maybe it's just a timing, if it's more than 15 months, when city council votes, they appoint someone. That's has to happen sometimes, but it doesn't really give the people a voice, except the people through the people. And I know we live in a democracy and that's, how the people speak, but anyway, there's only 2 points.
What's the current time?
So the way it is now is if there is 15 months or more left, then you do a special election. There's less than 15 months in the term, something's appointed.
But if you're gonna do a special election, what's the process? I think we dare to get that. Then it says
Right,
10 days from the date of the actual vacancy.
right, it's outlined in sub 4, the key initial piece is to allow people to qualify by petition, which is mandated by state law. So, and that's that first 30 days that plays into the extension of time. This last election also led to a runoff, and that takes additionally long, so it kind of maxed out the timeline to see itself.
Just for comparison, is there a time frame requirement? Governor as far as special elections for state, taking off federal election. So he could leave a seat, a house or Senate seat open.
He has adopted a variety of different dates when it comes to calling for special elections.
That's not by statute.
Right, correct, that does not come into play for municipal because the elections officer is the supervisor of elections and is given specific instructions.
Bobby, what would you do to change this? I'm reading this, it seems to be fairly quick. The special election should be held on the 4th Tuesday following the date of the deadline for qualifying, that's a month. However, if regularly scheduled elections within 28 to 90 days.
Is that what happened?
But
Well, we were in that date for a regular election, so they took on for it.
It was a special election organized by the supervisor election, it didn't go occur with the.
No, I don't know if we make it any shorter unless you say people can qualify for petition, that's what it seems like.
Good, what part of this is baked in by state law and what part of this is flexible?
Petition would be baked in by state law. Give people the opportunity to not pay, because the alternative is paying a qualifying fee or gathering enough petitions.
I want to say that.
Right, and it opens it up to a broader field, so I have no compatibility. The rest comes into play once you have qualifying, it's going through that process and making sure the supervisor has time for balance. So I would bet if we had something with supervisor lists.
And like that, they've had a month after qualifying, 30 days, they got 4 weeks. And then you had then you had what, yeah, well,
Had that been an appointment, I mean, would that be arguably more politically contentious? What if council picked someone that the community disliked? At least with this, we got to have an election. I had 2 debates. I agree. I thought the debates were great. A lot of people were engaged. Except that one got a little sketchy, but but I think an appointment might be. Anytime there's an election, that's a good thing, right? That's the people picking their person for council. So are you suggesting that instead of an election, there'd be an appointment?
No, I agree with you. I don't think an appointment would be a good idea. I think then you're giving the voters first trip. They should have the opportunity to choose the replacement or who represents them on the council.
but then how could you change this to make it any faster? This seems to be a rocket talking.
I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, it just for discussion. It felt like it was a long time. It was like June to October was a long time.
But you had a runoff. They got the 30 days.
Yeah.
Then you got the 30 days to have the election, then you had a runoff and it takes time.
It's 30-day qualify, 30-day
To the
election,
right?
and is it another 30 days to run? Or was it?
I need to do a time check there, guys. You've got like 3 or 4 minutes before it's the end of the time. Maybe we can table a conversation. If anyone wants to think more about it, with sending in advance or if we consider, we can do that as well. Is there any new business?
We're gonna bring back up the meeting time, it's another meeting,
Sure.
about the city council meeting. Coming up during the evening, time like that.
That's on, that's we're gonna revisit.
Okay.
If this doesn't.
Well, it does if it's related to suggestions we think we need to make to council. In the past, we have been business about taping our meetings and those sorts of things. But when it comes to topics that we want to bundle and kind of present all the charter changes, you have a list and I can send you a link to that. Feel free to add things to it and just initial and we can bring it back up.
I actually think for the list.
Okay.
I think, and then I guess it sort of relates, so maybe we're gonna move the conversation, but this early voting is not required in local elections, it's required state and federal. And the state gives us the option to require a charter. I think that provides a sense of certainty that is actually going to happen, so I think it's worth. I would like to propose having that conversation about
To discuss
requiring early voting.
requiring, I'll add that to the list and see. Early. Okay. All right, so 10 and 11 of the last 2 articles, we started 10, but this started. With the few things I have to review for myself. Maybe our target for next time is to get through this and 11. Please look at it in advance, come with your ideas. And hopefully we can push through, because we're gonna probably need, depending on how quickly that goes, I have no idea. We still need to go back to the list. And have conversations about that, so right now we're looking at 2 meetings more. So
More expensive.
maybe it depends, I don't know, at least 2,
And you don't even talk about any of the public comment issues or like.
that's why I said minimum 2. Then if this takes a whole meeting to get through 10 and 11, then I'd probably say 3. With this group, probably 6. No, you really, it's gonna take as long as it takes, I'm not hiding anything, I'm just letting you know what we're trying.
Can you refresh us what our ultimate end date that we can possibly go to? What was our timeline again?
So on the end of, I think August, the last week of August, 17 August. That's as far as we can push this.
I mean, I'm not pushing for that, I just don't.
I can-
But I feel like anyone needs to let to discuss it.
No, we haven't let this on about. Yeah. And I realized tonight, the things you guys wanted to get, so right before the meeting, that takes a little more time, but I don't know that we have a lot of us on the table, so hopefully it's more money through.
That's right.
So I think we can adjourn and I guess we'll see each other the first Tuesday of next month. Yeah.
Any more new business? Thanks, gentlemen. Meeting adjourned at 9:01.
You get a second on that?
Right.
Second.
We couldn't have it.
Aye. I didn't vote. I think y'all would have voted. I think y'all would have voted for us to adjourn. Yeah, the line again, somebody faces. I didn't, so that's just. Probably. You know.